Porter, CORC.
And Lou Dog to CORC member.
Okay.
Bill, announce yourself.
Bill Beautiful, CORC member.
Okay.
John Lord.
Patricia Morales.
Guys in the back
Announce
from,
yourselves. We're doing
Julie
it.
Edwards, PGAL.
that was Julie Edwards from PGL,
Sam Ferrari from PGAL.
Sam Ferrari from PGL,
Jacob Katz from Turtle Construction.
and Jacob Katz from Turtle Construction.
With the mask and
Okay. Just do a sound check. Did everybody hear all the introductions of those people?
Yes.
Yes. David, would you mind picking up?
All right, that was our attendance, and so we will get our meeting started here. Chairman's report, I have nothing to report except technology sucks. And can't wait till we get this room back without having the technology to deal with. So anyway, we will still have a legal meeting. Did we have to, Dave, read off any of the legalese that Jim read off last time?
Well, that's a part. I'm going to turn this over to Jim right now because he's going to do the attendance part. And Jim, you want to go ahead? I'll put up on the screen the question stuff.
Yes, please.
Present now.
Is Mr. Berger present?
Mr. Berger is not currently present.
He's in the building.
He's in the building and he will be in a short amount of time. So if it's okay, what we'll probably do is go with Mr. Huckel is the
Mr. McCoy.
Mr. McCoy is the alternate until such time as Mr. Berger can walk into the room, announce himself, and he will then be the voting member.
Okay, thank you.
Are we ready for Jim to do his thing?
Yes,
Wrong
I'm
document.
getting
Sorry.
started. We have 4 members present in person, so we are permitted to convene this meeting. And I think you called it to order, Mr. Porter.
Yes, I did.
So I need to poll the balance of members who are participating virtually and ask the questions that are on the screen right now. We'll start with Mr. McCoy. Could you turn on your microphone, please?
I'm on.
And confirm that you are not here for one of the reasons shown, 1 or 2?
I'm not. I'm not in person for neither one of those reasons.
Okay. Is there a third reason that you could offer that you're not participating in person?
I just have a simultaneous commitment.
Okay. The persons who are present in the board meeting have to vote as to whether or not that's an extraordinary circumstance. And it looks like Holly's saying no.
Okay.
Okay, so it's
Perhaps Mr. McCoy might want to read the number 2 to find out if there is an extraordinary circumstance, and that would be fear of the transmission of the pandemic. If that would be your reason for attending virtually. Otherwise, I believe that it would be up to the CORC board to make a determination of whether another type of reason would be sufficient to allow the extraordinary circumstance. Legal's not making that determination.
Right, and I believe that Treasury can attend the meeting and still have part of all the discussions. He just wouldn't be a voting member, but we have 4 as a quorum to make a voting count anyway. Correct?
You are correct.
That is correct.
All right, so Track, you may remain as part of the meeting. You won't be a voting member, but you can have all the discussion as if you were sitting in the room.
Okay.
Just to remind you, Mr. Porter, that all of CORC would need to vote on that motion.
Ah, okay.
Wait. So there has to be a vote for me to even stay? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, to participate.
We'll do that shortly. Let me confirm the rest of the balance of
It's not just you, it's all the members that are participating virtually.
Thank you. Human beings have made this as complicated as we possibly can. So, Mr. Simon and Ms. Farris have requested absence and have excused absences. Mr. Lassiter is participating virtually. Can you please turn your microphone and tell us if you're here for reason number one, or you're not here for reason number one or number two? Ken, can you turn on your microphone? Okay, I'll come back to him just in case. Mr. Shannon, I see that you're participating virtually. Is one of the two reasons shown on the screen
I'm not participating there because of number two, basically the pandemic.
Thank you. Mr. Hukel, I don't think you're on the line. If you are, can you please turn on your microphone?
He's in person. He's here with us.
Okay, good. Terrific. And Ms. Gaines, if you are participating virtually, can you please turn on your microphone? Okay, so we have Ms. Gaines and Mr. Lassiter who can't verify that they're not participating for the reasons stated. If maybe they join later and can acknowledge that, we could potentially do that. We need right now to allow Mr. McCoy,
Mr. Shannon.
and Mr. Shannon to participate virtually.
And what about me? Am I top liver? Haha.
Oh, Michael, I'm sorry, but sorry. I apologize for that. Thank you for that.
No problem.
Mr. Gelfa, can you please verify that one of the two reasons is the reason you're participating virtually?
Yes. Yes.
Number two, I presume?
Correct.
Thank you.
And Mr. Gelfand would be a primary member, so we would want to make sure that as part of the motion that Mr. Gelfand is authorized to voting.
Yes, correct.
With the members in the room in our forum, do we have a motion to allow virtual members voting and non-voting to participants?
I move that.
We have a first from John, second by Lou. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, you may all participate.
Hey, real quick, I think we have to do the poll. So, sorry, again, as Jim said, can we do Mr. Cheshire? How do you vote? Mr. Porter?
Yes.
And Mr. Doctor?
Yes.
Yes. Is that okay? Yep. All right. So we are good on that.
Okay. So the participants virtually, Mr. Gelfand will be a voting member. We have, in the absence of Mr. Berger, we can allow Frederick to be the voting member, I believe.
Yes. Yeah, I believe that's the understanding, is that Frederick would be the voting member until Mr. Berger arrives, at which time we'll then have to take another motion to allow for the switch so that Mr. Berger can vote. Because if Mr. McCoy votes for the first few, we might have to do the switch to make it clear in the record.
Understood. And we have Mr. Porter representing Ms. Ayala, Mr. Doctor for Mr. Barbieri, Mr. Gelfand for Ms. Brill, John Cheshire for Ms. McQuinn, and we have no one representing Dr. Robinson, and Mr. Needs will be representing Ms. Whitfield.
Okay.
Start the meeting now.
Susan, you wrote those down, correct?
I have them.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you, Jim.
But the sound's going in and out.
All right, we'll take care of that.
David needs to be closer to the microphone. David Porter. Thank you.
I guess I'll move over here. Yeah. I'm the furthest away. No, I'll just sit in that chair.
I was gonna say. We're gonna put them right in front of you, so y'all will, if I turn on the camera, you'll see them up close and personal.
Is that better, Michael?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, I feel like I'm in a deposition chair.
so now we're on staff updates, I guess.
All right, we will continue our meeting here.
Oh, sorry, yeah. We've got it.
Anyone with a conflict of interest for anything we're looking at today? No one in the room? Anyone virtually? Hearing none, no one has a conflict of interest. Lou, you did our CORC report. Any comments?
The board received it, it was distributed to all the members. There were no comments from the board.
Okay, you can handle it again for us this month. Thank you very much.
David?
Yes.
I apologize. Or you, while he's speaking, would that be okay?
For about a minute, sure.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because we're on staff updates.
That's all I need.
Okay. Jim, do you have any staff updates? Because Dave needed to be pulled away for IT for a minute.
No, we're going to give that right to Angel Garcia, who's going to have a speech slot for you on our very important new schools.
Okay, is that something Dave's going to flash up on the screen for us in the room?
Yes, so I guess we are going to wait for him.
We are going to wait. Okay. All right, we're ready for staff updates and Angel.
All right, so good morning, everybody. The information I just got is that anybody, it sounds like what we're having problems with is anybody outside of the district logging into anything Google today. So at schools, at offices,
Oh, wow.
if you're outside the district, we're having technical difficulties. So it's not just this building, it's not this. It may well be that kind of thing. Outside, so Dave Dolan logged into Dave Dolan's computer, has no problem getting onto a meeting. Patricia from the general counsel, no problem. You guys are outside members. The computers are local, but they're logged in using your email account or whatever your.
We logged in using your name as a school rather than a Gmail account. Like it's
Right. So that's.
logged in as an employee of these, no problem. So you can continue.
Why can't we just log in those as employees?
I just did.
He did.
The entire
Because we
time.
don't care if our name's up there.
My name is on it. That's
I don't
that's
care.
yes.
We have,
So we can go back to using those again.
if you want, I mean,
We're already set up, might as well just stay
yeah.
here.
Well, why don't we just stick with this for a little while? I want to get through some of it because we can get into the discussion points and go back. But at this point, okay, so are we at staff update?
Yes.
Okay, so my staff update are two things. The first thing, yesterday is my second favorite day of the year. For the record, it was National Facilities Management Day. So all 15 of us around the nation celebrated.
I didn't see that on NBC.
Yeah, it didn't show up on the news yesterday. No. Unfortunate.
It was on bloopers.
And all we get is one day. So, with that, I do want to thank all of my staff and the maintenance staff and whatnot that have been working incredibly diligently. As I might have reminded you guys last month, this coming Monday, all staff is coming back to the building. So we've been able to, for 16 plus months or so, been able to keep all the operations moving forward quite well. And in fact, we even last year we even increased our volume of work. So I really want to thank all of my staff and the maintenance staff that worked with us on that for doing an absolutely incredible job all year. So it's a high standard you've now set, and when we return to the office, we'll do even better, right? So I said that was my second favorite day of the year. My favorite day of the year is today because it is in fact my wedding anniversary. And so I needed to make sure I said that so I don't get in trouble with my wife. It's public record, it's being recorded. Okay, and that's all I have from that perspective. What I do want to do is introduce to everyone, I'm going to post up on the screen, and Angel Garcia is our project manager, our SPA, for two new schools. And the reason we're doing them now is because you all are about to vote on them this meeting, the GMPs. So bear with me. Okay. First one I'm going to present, and Angel, tell me if you see that on the screen.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Dave, I don't see your screen, so I'm flying blind here, but hopefully we're coordinated here. So you have the first slide showing the front elevation of Triple O High School.
That is correct.
Okay, great. So the first thing that I wanted just to announce and let everybody know is that the design for this high school won first place with FEFPA, which stands for Florida Educational Facility Planners Association, this year at the 2021 Architectural Showcase. So I just wanted to mention that and recognize PGAL in conjunction with Schenkel Schultz for their design. Next slide. So I'm not going to read everything here. This is just a project overview that we're looking at the school, but I do want to capture just a few little points here just to explain a little better about the high school. So the first thing that I want to mention is that there are 3 career academies that were designed into this high school. One of them is a nursing medical academy. The other 2 are related to IT. One is regular IT, the other one is business IT. And there are labs and specialized technology and equipment for each of those career academies, especially the nursing one. The second thing I wanted to mention is that the design took advantage of the northwest corner of the site, which is a prominent area as the anchor for the high school facade. And that the site is located on Lyons Road, just north of Woodlands Middle School and the intersection of Lyons Road and 47th Place. And then the third quick thing is that all of our new schools are being designed by Florida Building Code to a green standard. We're not going after certification like we used to in past years when we used to go for the USGBC certification. But we still have to comply with code, and they require that we design and build all of our schools to a green standard, and this one is being built to the green standard is being used for this one is the Green Globes certification standard. Next slide, Dave.
Site plan?
So this one here, hopefully we have the site plan that you're looking at. And just wanted to just orient you. So north obviously is up. You see Lyons Road on the left. Off of Lyons Road will be the main entrance for visitor, student, and staff parking. 47th Place will be a signalized intersection, and we're working that agreement with the county. And that would be primarily the bus loop and staff parking. And as you can see there, the high school is a very compact high school. And the reason for that primarily is to comply with the Florida Department of Education mandate for cost per student station. So as you progress from west to east, you have the front of the school, which basically consists of a 3-story building that you see there in blue shade. Hopefully you're seeing it, which has classrooms and labs. So that building there on the first floor has the single point of entry, the admin. On the second floor, it has the media center. And then the 3 floors are classrooms and labs to accommodate the students and the career academies that I mentioned earlier. To the south of that building is the gymnasium and locker room. And then behind that, we have a very atypical courtyard for high schools. Typically, our courtyards in traditional high schools that we've done at the district have been very wide due to the limited acreage that we had for this site. We kept that courtyard tight, but it flows well and it's compact. And then to the east of the main entrance, you have the auditorium, which also houses choral and band and arts behind it, as well as the kitchen and the food court style dining that we do at all of our high schools now. There's also quite a bit of space there for outdoor dining that is going to be used in conjunction with indoor dining. And then behind, you have all the athletic amenities. You have the chiller plant building, you have a field house there, you have concession stands, you have a lighted football stadium that seats 4,000, 3,000 on the home and 1,000 on the visitor side. You have lighted baseball and softball fields, practice fields, tennis courts, basketball courts. And it also has, the site also had some natural wetlands that we are preserving. It was part of the scope to preserve them. and we are doing that. And that is shown on the right side at the bottom where it says retention. That's natural wetlands there, and they also aid in the stormwater management for the site. So it has a dual purpose there. It could also be used educationally for the school as well. So that's pretty much on the site there. The site, just to give you an idea, is 46 acres. The school is going to house 2,700 students. And compared to past high schools, this is a very compact high school, again, driven by cost per student station. So the total square footage for this high school is just 280,000 compared to previous ones, which were around 360. So we cut a lot of square footage, but we still maintained all the programs that we did. Next slide, Dave. So this is the prominent corner off Alliance and 47th. It just gives you an overview from an aerial shot, 3D dimension of the site. Next slide. It's the same corner, but from ground level. And that you can see that was the anchor for the school. Also, the way the school is laid out, it provides for after hours activities in a very secure manner. So access to football games, baseball games, after activities using the auditorium, etc. All of them were calculated in the design to be used after hours and still maintain the site very secure and avoid accessing any part of the site that did not need to be accessed after hours. Next slide. This is just a basic layout so that you see so approaching the school, you're approaching it from the left where it says breezeway. And to the south of that breezeway is the single point of entry. That's the admin. And you have classrooms further south and to the north. You can see the courtyard and you can see the rest of the buildings to the right. That is basically the first floor of this campus. Keep in mind the gymnasium and auditorium and kitchen are much higher than a typical one-story building. Next slide, Dave. You see the second floor, and the anchor there is the media center in the corner. And you'll see some interiors in a bit. And then we have some labs to accommodate the academies that I mentioned and classrooms. And then third floor is the next slide, Dave, and that will show, again, a continuation of classrooms and labs at the campus. So now we're going to go into some renderings. So opposite from the media at the corner of 47th and Lyons, on the south end is a gymnasium, and that's a space that can be used after hours, so that has its own separate entrance and can be secured for that use. And you see there a rendering of that. Next slide. Next slide is flipping around on the north end of the campus along 47th Avenue. This will be the auditorium entrance, again designed for specific use in the event that is needed after hours, so it's all secured and separated from the campus. Moving along, you see the next slide is just an aerial showing the compact courtyard. So this is very atypical, like I mentioned, and if you go to any traditional high schools that we have in the district, usually they're much larger. This is very compact due to the acreage of the site and trying to get all the amenities there. But it still provides a lot of good flow between the classrooms and the buildings and the separate programs that are being run at the high school. Next slide is just some renderings to give you a better feel. So you see there some of the covered walkways, the courtyard area, the breezeway coming out of the breezeway. Once you go through the breezeway, you enter the courtyard area at the bottom left. And then the courtyard art patio, which is further down, is the outdoor dining. So you have outdoor dining, art patio, and then you have the courtyard there that connects the buildings very efficiently. Next slide is just some interiors and exteriors of the media center, which is that corner, that prominent corner. And so we have some collaborative spaces there, reading room, and you see the elevation there. So it's very modern looking, and that was the intent. And so we included all of the curriculum specialists from the district, and Larry Clausen was extremely instrumental in making sure that all these spaces were effective and current and up to date and up to our latest standards. Next slide is a interior of the dining, and at the bottom right you see the outdoor dining overflow. And this dining is brand new, but it's very similar to the re-engineering cafeteria projects that we've been doing at every high school, giving that food court look to it. And like I said, it has the overflow of the outdoor dining. And then the last slide for this high school, I just wanted to show the auditorium there, state-of-the-art auditorium, which again is situated in such a way that can be used after hours for multiple events in a very secured manner, and just bracing it from the rest of the campus so that everybody is contained there and they don't wander into the campus. And that's pretty much it for the high school.
Want to do some questions?
Yeah, questions. Anybody have questions?
Does this school have a name yet?
No, it does not. Right now, and on your documents, we've referred to the school as 03000, called 000 High School, because it's going to take several years to build, or a couple of years to build. Sorry, several to me is a couple. Sorry, I had Jacob in the room kind of give me that look of, what are you talking about, several? Couple of years to build, we don't usually do boundaries and naming principle and establishing the name and the colors and all that stuff. Probably another year from that. It does go to board. Yeah, there is, exactly. There's a name, and there's a committee, and they do a lot of outreach, and it's a big project. Oh, yes, Sam.
Yeah, I was curious on the eastern building. Is there nothing occurring on the second and third floor? I understand, obviously, the auditorium, but I forget what else was on that building. And by the way, it's a very attractive looking school. So my compliments to the architects.
The east, go ahead, Angel.
I'm sorry.
You know, like where the dining and the kitchen.
Yes,
Is there
Sam,
anything on the second or third floor, or is that just a one-story building? Obviously, the auditorium is going to go up quite high.
Yes, all of those buildings are actually going to go up much higher than a typical one-story if we were doing like a one-story classroom.
Okay.
So the auditorium obviously is very high, and it does taper down, but not to the level of a one-story building. We still have band and choral back there, which need a high ceiling. We have the dining is pretty tall as well, and the gymnasium. So all those buildings to the east and south are one-story, but closer to two-story in height than a typical one-story building.
And one other question. The auditorium, access to it, it said it was secure. Would that be through that breezeway?
No, sir. No, the auditorium for after-hour events would be directly from the north, from 47th Place.
Oh, and that parking used. By the way, I like it that the visiting team has to walk all the way around the field to get a seat.
Yes.
No parking on that side.
And one thing that I failed to mention is that it's slated to break ground at the very early June 7th, hopefully, if not sooner, and substantial completion next summer, not next summer, I'm sorry, 2 summers from now for an opening in August of 2023.
Okay, Steve Needs has a question.
Angel, are they going to use any window treatment to prevent the UV from coming in and creating a greenhouse on these large windows?
Yes, Steve, they're going to use roller shades based on our latest DMS standards.
Well, roller shades is different than a UV film, but it is just as effective.
Will it be low E glass?
We have Sam in the room. Sam, low E glass?
Yes, solar tinted glass as well as the
Yep.
roller shades. The roller shades are really more for being able to control the environment with the AV, especially the media center has 2-story glass, so it has automated roller shades.
Well, that's why I wanted the UV treatment on the glass so that you don't have a greenhouse held up and impact on the HVAC.
Yep.
Well, it's all solar treated glass to meet the energy code, so low E.
Okay.
Hopefully you caught some of that. Yes, it is in fact solar E glass. I'm sorry, Lou Doctor has a question.
Did the water mitigation issue get resolved?
Right now, the water mitigation issue, you're talking about the issue with the groundwater, that we did. Is that what you're talking about?
The landfill, the lines.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So all the groundwater was tested. All the results came back good. There's no contaminated issue there with the well, with the water. I'm sorry. And all that is with South Florida Water Management right now, and we expect a quick review back from them. But as far as all the report that was done and the testing all came back with really good results, and that has been submitted to South Florida Water Management. So we don't have yet completed as of today, but we expect that to be completed very soon here.
Okay, thank you.
Angel, David Porter. I very much like the courtyard. I think it actually can be called a courtyard because it will be a hangout space. I walk through the Seminole Ridge courtyard all the time, about every other week, and I literally feel like I'm in a prison courtyard.
Yeah.
So this will actually feel like, it's a hangout place. Can you go back to the slide that shows one of the renderings of one more back, street level? There we go. So we're doing this tilt wall according to the GMP. So I guess I'm curious as to how do you do tilt wall that is up in the air and not down to the ground like this is shown because it's over a cantilevered sidewall covering.
Angel, would you like to have Sam or get Pertle to tell us how we're going to do it? I mean,
yeah, Jacob is there, so Jacob can speak to that, or Sam, either one.
Okay, we're getting them closer to the microphone so you can hear it.
The cantilevered portion you see there is framed out of light gauge framing, so it braces back to the tilt panel. It's got red iron steel that supports it structurally, and that's what's creating that cantilevered, and then it's wrapped in metal wall panels. So that's the.
So it's not going to be tilt wall for the stuff that's out over top.
Correct. The 10-foot cantilever is not tilt wall. The whole rest of the school is tilt wall, so that's a cantilevered slab.
But it's tilted behind it, and the light gauge framing braces back to the tilt panel.
Well, when I'm standing down at the ground level, it looks like there's a 6 or 8 foot cantilever coming out.
This portion here?
Yeah, well, and all the way down the side.
Well, so this is just a regular aluminum canopy that you see here. Your traditional aluminum canopies that you have in all your
covered
schools.
Oh.
This portion here is all framed out. With
the shadow you see is just the covered walkway.
Anyway, because it's all glass.
Right, but it's tilt panels behind it, and then on the sides here that supports all that light gauge framing.
Okay, so
It's a cantilevered slab at the second floor that supports that, and it's all tied back with steel and tilt.
Right.
And then it's got a metal panel on that corner just for aesthetics.
Okay.
This is a traditional aluminum canopy that extends all the way
That's
down.
what was deceiving.
It's deceiving because it's right at the eye level.
Like
It
the
looks
whole
like
second and third level was cantilevered out over top of like a retail center covered walkway.
It's only at the media center.
Right. Yeah, it's all a flat surface with a canopy, and the shade you're
Canopy's in
seeing
front of it. Yes.
is just the shade from the canopy.
I guess design-wise, everything we've seen up until this time, design-wise, has got these aluminum eyebrows over top of the windows for shade. And I guess that was just not the design idea or needed for the heat gain.
Well, we actually have some vertical fins that are on the sides of the windows that come out, but there is nothing over the top.
Okay.
And we did the whole energy code analysis. We're okay with the solar E-glass to handle that. We just felt less maintenance also to not have those fins. And
oh, yeah, I'm in agreement.
Burn roost and everything else that happened.
Yep.
Steve.
One last question is the chiller plant, is it a water cooled or is it air cooled chillers?
No, water cooled cooling towers.
Cooling towers. And they're in an enclosure and they're in that service drive behind the school if you go back to the plant.
Yeah.
So we can just add Angel did a great job and just add a couple things. So part of the massing was there's a new residential development to the north and to the east. And so we try to put the massing and using the widening of Lyons Road to give us some distance. So that's why we pushed the school to the west. We put the football field in the center, closest to Woodlands. And then the other fields, and then we put the practice fields all the way on the east side. So it scales down, but the chiller plant's right in the middle of the campus and it's kind of screened. It's the gray building. Yes, sir. Walk around it.
So one final question, the retention area is large enough to have a rowing team, so is that planned?
Actually, the rendering is deceiving. There's some littoral.
Oh, okay.
The Water Management District and Herman, everybody got involved in that.
Okay. It's nice how we got all the green stuff over against the residential development too.
Yeah.
That's being friendly to the neighborhood.
And the challenge, of course, is site lighting, stadium lighting for the baseball field and whatnot. But of course, as I said, by putting the football field closer to the middle, we have a much better chance of, those are the disturbing lights, and they're much further away from residential. Just for record, so anybody is wondering where this is, Woodlands Middle School is directly to the south. At the bottom of that image is a canal, and Woodlands is on the other side of that canal. So literally, we will have a middle school directly adjacent to the high school.
Anyone else online with questions? Not seeing any hands raised. Okay.
Hello, excuse me. I have my hand raised. This is Dickie Sykes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Go ahead.
I just want to let everyone know, since we are highlighting O, that Pirtle is in a second-tier pilot program with the school district so that we can track SBEs on the second level. And I want to give praise and kudos to Jacob and the Pirtle team. They awarded, if everything goes through, there will be an additional $6 million to district-certified SBEs, increasing their goal from 24.8% to 32.8%. They did a fantastic job reaching out to much smaller SBEs for them to work on this project. So kudos to them and their team. Thank you, Jacob. I really appreciate your support and your advocacy.
And Dickie, thank you very much too. You working with Jacob on a lot of the outreach efforts. This has not been something that they just threw together at the end. I know for a fact that, Dickie, you and your team have been working with Jacob for well over a year and a great number of outreach events to try to engage a lot more of these small businesses. So kudos all the way around for really putting together a great effort.
Thank you, David. Sure. To you and your team as well. Thank you for your support.
Angels to Aces.
All right, we still have updates.
We have one more. If we can have Angel talk again, I know he doesn't really like this at all. Trust me. By the way, I feel bad. Mr. Barbieri left. These two presentations, we are also doing a video montage, like a YouTube video of each one of these, because Mr. Barbieri had brought up previously one of those videos that we had done. So, you guys need to start doing this more. So what we're doing is we're taking these images, and Angel and Larry Clausen did voiceovers for them. So we're going to be putting those out on YouTube and making sure the board gets to see them, and then putting them on the channels and whatnot. Because we really want people to see that this is coming. Because unless you're in the little world that we're in, people don't even know we're building a school. So we want to make sure we're pushing that information out. So Angel's been doing a great job working with the communications department, because that video should be out shortly. We hope to have it out by the board meeting next week for both of these.
Lou has been on CORC longer than I have, and I've been on for 20 years. And I think this would be the first time that we've been given kind of a full design presentation prior to a job getting started.
Well, we felt bad that we didn't do it on, we saw your reaction when we'd given you Plumosa, but we'd given it to you after it had started and realized, you've never had a chance to see it. Angel did a great job with his team out here to try to make sure that we got the information together to present it to you now. It's the same day as the vote, but we wanted you to at least to be able to see these are the efforts that they've gone through in putting this together. Angel, do you want to go on to the next one? I've got the slide up for the first slide up for 05C.
Yes. Okay. So real quickly, let me just say that the transfer of the property and resolution between the city of Boca Raton and the district has been completed for the land that we've acquired for this new school. Dave, if you can flip so they can see the site plan. This is pretty much very similar. There's a little differences, very minute differences, but the acreage is pretty much similar to the acreage that we currently have now that we've been using for the last couple of school years, where Verde Holding School and Addison Holding School were situated with portables. Now we have acquired this property. It's approximately 15 acres, like I mentioned, and as soon as school lets out for Addison and that holding school is relocated to the new Addison K-8 school, like the very next day, we're going to be out there dismantling that holding school site. The portables are coming out. We are trying to salvage much of the fencing and walkway covers and things because they're fairly new. They were put in there for the holding schools and incorporating some of those features into this school. But you can see on the site plan there, on the left, you have Military Trail. This is just south of Don Estridge and Spanish River. And it has that weird shape. That's what we were able to get, but we were able to make the school design work within that. So at the very bottom, there is a Banyan Trail that enters the school site at the very entrance. If you look at the bottom right of that site plan, it says new school entrance. That connects to Banyan Trail. And we have the parent visitor parking there. Then we have the school, which I'll go into in a second. And then to the north, we have the bus drive. The bus drive is dedicated off of Military Trail. It'll be a right turn only out of that exit. But it's just dedicated for the busing. So all of the parking will be at the south. And again, we did have to do some water management, storm management on site, which you see there, some retention areas. So that's pretty much it. What I wanted to mention, if we can go to the next slide, Dave, is so this is a 3-story tear down to 1-story elementary school. Let me, first of all, Dave, I'm sorry, if you can go back to the site plan just to give you an overall orientation of the site in comparison to everything else. So to the bottom left of the school is a commercial building, an office building, basically. To the south of the school is a city dog park. To the right of the school is basically at this point undeveloped. There is a bike path, walking path with a lake there. And then to the north, like I mentioned, is Don Estridge, basically the play fields for Don Estridge. So that gives you kind of an orientation of where all the surroundings are. So now going back to the next slide, where the overall first floor plan, the classroom wing that you see there in purple, that's a 3-story classroom wing. And then as it goes down to the right, it tears down into 2 stories, and then north, it goes into 1 story. So you have the admin right at the corner to receive all of the parents there. You pass the admin, and then you go into the arts, music, dining room, kitchen, and then back a house further north by the bus drive. Next slide, Dave. You have the second floor of classroom wing, and then the media center sits above the admin area on the second floor. This is very similar. We've done this at several schools, 2 that I have worked with. One was Galaxy, I think, has the same concept of the media over the admin. The other one I did also was Hope Centennial, which had the the media center over the admin. So it's following the same concept for that. And then finally, the third floor plan in the next slide is just classrooms there. Then we go into some renderings, and I just have 2 from the architect at this point. So the architect is Siskovich, and the CM working on this is that we're going to be presenting the GMP today is Moss. And so from the first rendering there, you see the overall parking to the south, and the front of the building, the admin and media center on the far right, and the 3-story classrooms to the left. And then we have the bus loop further north and the play fields west of that. And then the second final rendering that we have is just another ground sort of rendering as you're approaching the admin area, showing the drive, the parking, and the main entrance to the school. This school is going to house 972 students. The square footage of the school once again, is very compact for an elementary school. This is just around 95,000 square feet. Our typical elementaries in the past used to be roughly about 120, so that gives you a comparison. And again, all these compact designs are being driven primarily by DOE and the mandate to meet cost per student station. Both of these projects that are the GMPs that are going today, both of them are under cost per student station. So we've identified all the cost per student stations, and we're very comfortable that we're going to meet both of them with both of these projects. And Dave, with that, I think I'm done with this presentation.
Angel, David Porter, question I've got, are the play fields intended to be also after hours used by the community?
No, not that. So to my knowledge, Dave, and I may be wrong on this, but I believe I'm right. The play fields on Don Estridge, right to the north of that driveway for the buses, I believe there is some, or has in the past been some interlocal agreement for use after hours of those play fields. But the play fields pertaining to the elementary school, no, sir, they're not part of ILA or anything like that for after use hours.
Angel is correct. The two baseball fields that are just above here and just north of the water basin, there's a track and football field, and I think they do lacrosse. There is an interlocal agreement with Boca Raton Beaches and Parks, I think it's the name of the group, with us on those.
My point of my question was if they were going to be for public use, our parking is so far away from them. So that's obviously an irrelevant comment then.
Yeah. And I'm Angel, and I thought we had parking along here. Is there a little parking thing here, or did we not do that?
No, there's only parking. Well, there's where you see the service yard there. If you go back to the site plan, there is obviously staff parking there, Dave, but all the parking is to the south.
Okay, so we didn't put anything up to the north. Okay.
No, sir.
Okay.
David, Sam has a question.
Is it all internal, or does it have an external fire stairway?
Angel, did you hear that question?
No, Dave, I was not able to hear it.
Excuse me?
Sam, we hear your mic, so why don't we go to your question first, and then we'll mute you, and then we'll go to Mr. Needs' question. Sam, go ahead. Sam, did you have a question?
I muted him, sorry.
Okay. On the site plan, there was a parcel on the northeast portion of the site. I think it says site retained by city. Why is there a background to that, or why is it even included if the city retained it?
Because it was land in which our district leased it from the city when we were building the holding school.
Okay.
We were using it for part of our parking and such. It has now been returned back to the city. And in fact, you'll notice that a lot of the images for the DeHornley Park, those things that are adjacent to the park, they did a nice job of really enhancing them so that they're not a detriment to the beauty of a park. That land that says retained by the city is intended for the city to do something to enhance.
Okay. So it's not really part of the school anymore.
Nope,
it was just for a previous use. Thank you very much.
Okay. Go ahead, Steve, if you could.
Okay, my concern is the media center and the fire egress. Is all the egress internally, or is there an external stairs to the outside?
Steve, all the egress is internal.
The reason for it is the kindergarten and first graders is my concern.
So they have a dedicated stairway for the little ones, separate from the other ones. Like we do every time we have a media center on the second floor, we have a dedicated stairway just dedicated for the very little ones. We're doing that at Addison Meisner as well.
code required.
That's fine and dandy, but does it discharge to the outside or to an inside corridor?
To the outside, sir.
Okay, because I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Okay, Lou Doctor has a question.
Is this school intended for the children in that area east of the turnpike only?
Well, right now I can say we don't have a boundary established. It will be, the boundary process will begin shortly. And I don't want to say weeks or months, but obviously shortly. But yes, from our perspective, this school, amongst other things, will help us in reallocating some of the students to diminish the overcrowding at, I believe it was Calusa was one of the big overcrowded schools.
Yes.
So the long-range plan will be looking at population west of the turnpike, but it's independent of this.
Yes, yes. West of the turnpike, this school does not serve. This is literally way east, Don Estridge, Spanish River. So it is an overflow for some of the eastern schools like Calusa.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions?
What?
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me? Hello?
Yes, Vicky, go
I
ahead.
have my hand up. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Moss. Moss is also in our second tier SBE program, and they have done a wonderful job also adding an additional 1.8 million to our certified businesses. So we're looking at two projects, Triple O and O5C, almost $8 million to SBEs because of this pilot program. And you ask, well, why, Dickie, haven't you spread it out to everyone? Because it's exponentially more work. So we're tracking the success of how well we can monitor and vet all of the second tier data. And if we can do that successfully with the team I have in place, we'll think about rolling it out. But that's why we only have a few companies in this second tier pilot program. But so far, team, so far, so good. Thank you very much. Well done, Moss.
Thank you, Dickie. Yes, thank you, Dickie, and your team, and as well, again, Moss, for participating in this effort. I think long-term, this is going to be an excellent addition or improvement on our program. So,
Okay, any other questions for staff update? Not seeing any in the room. Anyone else online? Last call. Okay, we're going to move on, and Tom Berger has entered the room. And so
you four.
We need another whole motion thing just for us to let Tom participate now.
Is that correct, Holly or Patricia? We do want to do a motion in a second to permit Mr. Berger to be in.
Holly just joined us.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that's my recommendation.
Okay.
All right, we need a motion for Tom Berger to join the meeting as a voting member.
As voting member for Mrs. Andrews' district.
Okay.
I move Tom be allowed to vote.
Okay, second. Lou seconds. All in favor? Oh, we have to poll everybody?
Yeah, poll everybody.
Okay, let's
John?
start the poll.
John Cheshire, aye.
Yes.
That was Steve Needs, yes.
David Porter, yes.
And Mr. Doctor?
Doctor, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, now we have 5 active or in-person voting members, and Mr. Gelfand is the 6th.
Right.
Is that correct? Okay.
And Dave, can you just check to see if Ms. Gaines is appearing virtually?
Okay. Leah Gaines, if you're on, can you unmute yourself? Okay. Okay, it does not appear as that's the case. So at this time, we have 6 voting members.
Thank you.
Okay.
Michael, Michael Gelfand, you have your hand up, by the way.
We're not. No.
Yes. First question is on that last matter. Should I be registering a vote on that?
Oh, actually, you know what? I apologize. Mr. Gelfand, you're absolutely correct.
No problem.
Yes,
The
please.
answer is yes. Let's move on.
Okay.
The next item is with reference to staff, who should I be speaking to regarding my concerns and frustrations with reference to technology? I don't want to go through everything at this meeting with everyone else, but give me the name of the person who has authority to make decisions that I can talk to.
Not sure exactly. If you're referring to our technological challenges today and in past at these meetings, is that what you're referring to?
That's part of it. Part of it's the agenda and how it's distributed.
Okay, that would be me. I'll,
Alrighty.
if it's okay, Mr. Gelfand, you and I can certainly
talk
talk
offline.
afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, Michael, the issues today we're being told are Google related, not just district related.
Next meeting, I may, but not right now.
Certainly. Offline, I'll welcome the opportunity to talk to you about those.
I'll just say that I deal with video meetings with literally, over 100 participants, and we don't have anywhere near the types of recurring problems that we have here. So let me talk with you, David, offline, okay?
Sure.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay.
Okay, we are going down the agenda more, and we're now to public comments. Any public comments? Anyone in the room? Not hearing any. Anyone online with public comments? Not hearing anyone unmute. So let's go down our consent agenda.
Oh, that didn't work out well.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. So for everyone else in the room, we have posted on the screen for the public the agenda list, because at this point, I think, Mr. Porter, we will go down the list and determine if and which items wish to be polled for discussion.
I was looking for my pen. I had one. I don't know where it's at.
Yeah, I was gonna say here, take mine, because
All right. Okay.
Jim's writing down all the information, so.
FC1. I wanted that polled.
Okay.
Anyone else? FC2? FC3?
Gelfand.
Okay. FC4?
Gelfand.
And John Cheshire.
Yep. John also wanted that polled. FC5?
Yes.
I wanted that polled. Somebody else, Michael?
Yes.
Okay. FC6?
Yes.
I did also. FC7?
Gelfand.
I wanted that polled. FC8?
Yes.
Okay. FC9?
Gelfand.
I also wanted that polled. PC1? I wanted that polled. PC2?
Yes.
PC3?
Yes.
PC4? PC5? I wanted that polled. PC6? PC7? I wanted that polled. That's it. All right, I need a motion to.
I'll make a motion that we, that there is no objection to the board considering the items on the consent agenda.
Need a second?
Second.
Second by John, all in favor?
I got to vote him.
You got a poll?
Got a poll. Yep.
Aye.
Cheshire, aye. Okay.
Yes.
Here we go.
Porter, yes.
Doctor, yes.
Mr. Gelfand
Yes.
and Mr. Berger.
Yes.
Now, let me ask, every one of these that we've polled that we're now going to have motions on, we have to do an individual polling? Even if it's unanimous? Nobody's objecting?
Yes.
God, that's absurd.
So if I
I'll be
may,
on record to say that's absurd.
I did notice on the minutes that we had how each person voted, even when the vote was unanimous. And following the chair's comments, has there been some change in the law or an interpretation?
This is Polly speaking. In consultation with Mr. Harris, given that these are meetings that we're holding under a temporary policy due to COVID, as well as the fact that it's a mixed meeting with virtual and participation. It's our recommendation that when things, instead of saying just unanimous, that individual members be polled. However, it's a recommendation, and that's what we have instructed for facilities when conducting the CORC meetings.
All right.
All the ones we had pulled, we will not finish this meeting by 11:30. If we have to poll everybody for everyone.
David, if I may, the polling isn't going to be that difficult, especially if Mr. Dolan has his list and goes through it, bam, bam, bam. That can be done. Just Dave Dolan, I'm certain you got your list and, ratchet through it quickly. Just one thing, we are not paying you by the word.
All right, let's keep going here. FC1, I was the one who pulled it. So, Dave, I don't know if you can pull up on the screen the summary.
Yeah, bear with me.
Yeah, it's the responses, actually, that's what I commented about. I was down to F for item number 17.
So which one are we at? FC1?
Yeah, FC1, but it was Jim's response.
Oh, shoot. Oh, no, I don't have.
You can still go to FC1.
Okay, I'm on FC1.
Go down to number 17. It's not on the screen. Well, my general question was
so hang on a second. Let me do this. I'll get you back over here. Okay.
I had one of the comments I had was, it was, do the architects and engineers and our plan reviewers have checklists during plan prep to catch a lot of the standard repetitive things we're finding are becoming extra charges? And the response was there are checks and balances, but basically nobody's reviewing the drawings except the architects and the contractors. Our SPAs don't look at the drawings to do a checklist. Our building department doesn't because that was emphatically stated that's not their job.
Right.
So it sounds like we have nobody that's representing the owner that's actually double checking whether the AEs are catching standard stuff.
I would beg to differ with your analysis. You're suggesting that no one's looking, and you said that openly. That is not the case. Yes, we missed quite a few things on occasion, but no, we are in fact looking. The district staff, AECom, we are in fact reviewing the plans. The building department, in fact, does review the plans. They catch things and tell us. Again, these are oftentimes the misses that you catch, and they appear as though they're egregious or they're horrible. That doesn't go to show the 18,000 things we did catch in advance. And I guess that's what we're kind of alluding to, is that it's not a function of we're just blowing and going. We're not looking at anything. The SPAs, AECom has a design team. We have the design reviewer people that are helping as part of that process. They are all very actively involved in reviewing the designs and giving extensive feedback. There are certainly going to be times we miss them, and I would not put any undue pressure on the building department to say they do the best they can. They are in fact reviewing and catch a lot of important things, but they are not always. None of us are infallible when it comes to review. So what you are catching are regular occurrences. I'm not to say that every project doesn't have 2 or 3 misses. You guys are really good at catching the misses.
Since I was the only one to pull this, I'll keep going. What I want to try to develop, and it's with CORC's support, hopefully, is a grading system for architect and engineer errors and omissions, not costs.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to come up with a grading system of A through F, because I want to reward the architects that really do a competent set of drawings in terms of having that knowledge to a selection committee. Frank Simon and I have harped on this since we got on CORC.
Yeah.
That we don't get to look at the drawings, and that's fine. We shouldn't be looking at the drawings. But stuff gets missed, and some firms do a better job and have better checklists and better quality control within their firms than other firms. So I think those firms should be rewarded by having a higher grade. So what I'd like to do is come up with a system, and I will do this, and then present it back to CORC and to staff to see if it's something that we can incorporate into the selection process.
Now, I don't know if anybody else kind of
Well,
feels that way.
And I would agree, information on a selection committee is important. As much information as we staff can provide to you and fellow staff who are on those selection committees, the better. It's a question of tracking. I know we've talked about how do we track.
We already do it.
No, but we track the architects.
Yeah.
When an engineer, the subcontractor, the subconsultant is oftentimes the one you're yelling at me about on these things.
Right.
And the architect, and I see PGL sitting in the room, and I know you're sitting there knowing you're going to get blamed for it. You're going to get graded down for it. So it's a challenge because ultimately what you're looking to do is create, as Dickie pointed out with her second tier tracking of SPEs, we're dealing with second and third tier tracking of consultants and subconsultants to score, because ultimately that's where you're going on your selection committee, is wanting to get there.
I understand, but just like a CM is responsible for that electrician, if that electrician screws up, it's on the CM because the CM and the super didn't catch it.
Right.
Just like the architect, it's up to the architect in the firm for the processes. All of the selection committees for architects, we get this 4 or 5 page, whole booklet. This is how we run our office, and this is how great we are, and this is how we manage reviewing drawings and making sure stuff's not missed and coordinating with the engineers. So, if there's an engineer out there that the architect consistently keeps using, and that engineer keeps making that architect look bad,
it's the architect's fault.
It's the architect's fault.
Fair enough.
Use a different engineer.
So if that architect's grade goes down, never because of the architect, but always because of the engineer, and the architect didn't catch it, I'm sorry, it's part of your practice.
Fair point. Absolutely. I appreciate it.
And that was my question is the sub-professional being hired by the architect?
They are.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
100% of the time.
Right. It's a matter of, as you said.
I'm responsible for my subcontract.
Correct. And if that's the case, and Mr. Porter, your point is absolutely well taken. I don't know exactly how you choose to grade that, but I welcome the opportunity.
I already have a system in my head. What I'd like from you or Jim is to send me the latest E&O report that you say you keep tabs of.
Okay. Absolutely.
I just want to see that as a guideline for how to set up a grading system.
Okay. Jim, you're on that?
Understood, yes.
Just email me that one pager. That'll be fine.
Okay, the last comment I had was on it's on FC7 actually, but it was a change order 1, talking about the term that I kind of despise, which is unpurchased scope. I think it really means buyout usage. When I hear unpurchased scope, the job scope had parking lot lights in it, but we're not going to do the parking lot lights. So that is scope we're not purchasing. To me, when I hear we're taking buyout savings because the electrical sub came in $100,000 cheaper than the GMP, that's buyout usage.
Yeah.
So I really want us, and we don't even define unpurchased scope down below the definitions in our summary table. So I'd love us just to stop using unpurchased scope unless we are actually pulling something from the job, not purchasing it.
Jim, would you care to respond? Because obviously I'm sitting here like no.
Yes, no problem. So we're talking about the schedule of values, and both of the terms are used to describe that one topic. Unpurchased scope is what we don't buy right away and that we buy eventually through the project, and what's left over is buyout savings. But there's no problem with not using the word unpurchased scope. We can consistently use buyout savings. That'd be just fine.
Well, I do think unpurchased scope has a use and a definition.
Yeah.
But to me, it would be like our safe, dry, cool, and whatever that term is. When we're yanking something from the actual scope, to me, that's unpurchased scope because it was scope in the original job that we are no longer purchasing. And therefore, that value can go back into the budget. That, to me, again, is different than when we actually buy something out at a cheaper price than the GMP called for.
Or when the CM puts together a GMP and says, I wasn't able to get bids on the specialty lighting that you need. So I'm going to put an allowance in, and ultimately, I know you had written that in your description, an allowance to cover, we know it's going to be somewhere in the range of $50,000. So I'm going to put an allowance in, we buy out and it's 40. So it's unpurchased scope, and we had 50,000 to buy it, we bought it for 40.
Yeah, but so to me, that's still a buyout because the
Buyout
allowance is no different than having a bid.
Right.
It's still a cost within the GMP. It's establishing a line item, whether it's a bid or whether it's a
Right.
gas, for that item.
The difference is we want to make sure that the allowance that we're referring to is above the line as opposed to below the line, because oftentimes allowances we kind of attribute below the line. These need to be actual costs that the contractor is anticipating having to spend very clearly, and we're going to get all the backup anyway.
Right. I think what I'm doing is trying to look at it like if a board member were to look at this, do they know what unpurchased scope is? Does a member of the public look at this and follow this through and know what that means? You guys know what it means because it's completely internal.
Right.
We're looking at it from an outside perspective to say, let's make this as clear as possible.
If it's okay with you, yes, I appreciate it because I tend to disagree. I come from the John Cheshire School of GMPing, so I have a different opinion on whether to use that phrase. And I will certainly work with you, Mr. Porter, if we can continue to fine tune our definitions on how we're explaining these things.
Yeah, and again, this is just my opinion. So, I mean, I don't know if anybody else agrees
Yeah.
or disagrees.
No, I agree.
Mr. Cheshire,
You've got
yeah.
the two things. You've got the buyout, like you said, you've got unpurchased scope. They're two different things.
Two different
and they
things.
need to be defined separately.
Very clearly.
Okay.
That's why I say I'm in the John Cheshire School. I grew up under John Cheshire, so I think we see eye to eye on not agreeing with that term. So yes, I appreciate that. We'll work on that with you.
You need condolences?
Yeah.
All right,
No, I
that's
think
all.
I've done a good job handling that.
There you
go.
Michael, you raise your hand.
Yes, so I have the same concern being a total outsider, if you would, from the knowledge that you folks have. And that's also why I pulled FC3 and FC3 because of this unpurchased scope. And I guess I'm just asking the other, construction professionals, going to be relying on you folks on this. I'm not saying, don't give us credits at all, but I'm just wondering, is there something in the bidding process also that we should be looking at where we're getting these relatively significant numbers coming back at the end of the job?
Your last 4 words cut out there, Michael.
I also ask whether there's something we should be looking at the bidding process as we're getting these relatively large credits coming back.
Yeah, wait till we get to that one, because I also had questions about, I think, the one you're talking about, and then we can bring that up again. For FC1, I didn't have anything else, and I was the only one who pulled it. So if anyone else doesn't have anything, need a motion to go forward?
Motion to go forward on 1.
Tom Berger with a motion.
Second.
Okay, if I may clarify, the motion is that it's a motion that there's no objection that the board consider FC1.
Yep, correct. I didn't add that. You're
Go
right.
forward.
Thank you.
Second with Mr. Cheshire. Okay, down the list. Mr. Berger, your vote?
Yeah.
That's a yes. Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Doctor?
Yes.
Mr. Gelfand?
Yes.
Mr. Cheshire?
Yes.
And Mr. Needs?
Yes. Did we have a motion to approve the ones that weren't pulled?
We did.
Okay.
We did. And
It's so long ago.
I accidentally failed to include Mr. Gelfand in that reading, but we took care of it after the fact.
Okay.
So now we're done. We've got FC1.
Right. We're down to FC3.
Okay, bear with me. FC3.
And Michael, you pulled FC3, so go ahead and start. I had also, no, I didn't pull it. You were the only one.
I have the same question with reference to the unpurchased scope and contingency amounts. Again, no objection to credits coming back, but the question is, A, are they appropriate, not too small? Again, not looking to get force in the mouth. And second, looking at the number of these, in past meetings and this one, is there something we should be looking at the bidding process?
Yeah, I was okay with this one. I thought the credits coming back, we're going to get different credits on different jobs depending on how they bid out. And going forward, we may not be seeing many credits at all because construction inflation is starting to go through the roof.
Yeah. And my apologies, Mr. Gelfand, unless Jim knows the specifics behind the unpurchased scope, for some reason I want to say Coniston was something that we had excluded. I don't know, Jim, was it something about the air conditioning that was already being done?
If you can give me a second, I can check the record because I always ask that question.
Yeah, no control over it, right?
No control.
It was 166,000 in unpurchased scope.
And I'm not going to be able to find it on this.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not finding it.
Well, it's on page 12 of the PDF is where they list out line items for all the unpurchased scope.
There we go. Thank you. It was a series of items.
There's a whole bunch of stuff, VCT. Yeah, I mean, to me, that's all buyout savings. I mean, it doesn't look like we eliminated anything.
Correct. We did not eliminate anything.
So this is buyout savings.
This is buyout savings.
Change the name and we're fine.
Okay.
Michael, you okay with that?
Yes, then we'll make the motion that there is no objection to the board considering FC3.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
Second by Tom. Paulus.
Mr. Berger.
Yes.
Mr. Porter.
Yes.
Mr. Doctor.
Yes.
Mr. Gelfand.
Yes.
Mr. Cheshire.
Yes.
And Mr. Needs. Okay, it's unanimous.
Okay, FC4.
Okay, go ahead.
Michael and John.
So, one, with reference to the hung wires and all of that, is there a reason why that wasn't discovered beforehand in some type of an uncle process?
It was evaluated early on, and I don't want to speak out of turn for Glenn Armbruster, our SPA on this project, but I do know that at multiple times we've had the wires, we've had communications with FP&L, who usually are the primary person who evaluates what's on the poles, what lines need to be moved. And my recollection was we've had two different circumstances since that time where they told us up front what wires were on there, what needed to come down, and they had a plan. And subsequently, two different times after that, they've uncovered more wires. One wire they thought was theirs, turned out it wasn't, it was somebody else's. So that's where you're seeing the, I think the Crown Castle one.
Michael, this is David Porter. I can also add that this is a Westgate Avenue problem. I've done on Westgate, and it took a year to resolve utility issues along the roadway.
Yeah. And because we feel this is incredibly difficult because this project was open last August, and it's May, and we're not able to close it out. We can't finish the project. We can't finish the turn lane because of the efforts that are going on here. So it's painful all the way around.
Yeah, well, it's a $46,000 pain, and it's troubling because that should have been dealt with the relocating presumably of the electrical lines and telephone that were on the same poles, and that's the whole purpose of. I guess there's no overhead equivalent of uncle.
No, it's only digging underground.
And FP&L bears no responsibility for, wrong information.
That was my experience with the other Westgate project.
And water utilities, yeah, I know there's a couple of items on here that you all have brought up. For many of you who are in the industry and do know, we've always been challenged with water utilities. They are a good partner. The county is important to us, but they don't necessarily give all the information all the time up front. Many of us, and I'm looking around the room and I see some of us have even had the experience where I know we've gone through a design, got a permit, had the pre-construction meeting with Adam or Joe Lambert at Water Utilities, only to find that they weren't happy with what happened in the plan review side, and things have to change. So it has happened quite often, but we do everything we can. We plan for it, we try to accommodate it, but ultimately there is very little we can do. We certainly do have open communications with the county through the county administration, our administration with theirs. But it's manpower, it's people catching the issues.
So let me just stay back on the FP&L issue first. So this is the second project we've had this problem with? Is that what I'm hearing, or did I misperceive that?
With an FP&L challenge where they don't give us all the information. Yes, no, it's been a lot more than two.
All right. So I would suggest that at this point then, there be a discussion with someone at a higher level above at FP&L, particularly since FP&L is in a very significant effort now to increase its public posture, if you would. And it probably does them no good to be forcing taxpayer money to correct their paperwork problems. So, will staff move forward with that and start working up the ladder at FP&L so we don't have these problems? Because they know what's out there and they send the guys out there to look at this.
We will certainly take the concern that you've expressed and others have expressed and take it further up. But I not to say that I'm going to necessarily see a result. I think we're a blip on their screen in the grand scheme of what FP&L does. But we certainly try to establish strong relationships. And if we can improve upon something in our relationship with FP&L, we certainly will do so.
I appreciate that, but at this point, I'm dealing with other easement issues with them. I'm not accepting that anyone who talks to FP&L is a gnat on a camel's ass and is insignificant to that huge monolith that just rolls over everyone. If we do that, we might as well just give up everything to FP&L and let them run our lives. So I think, and I've had some movement with them on items. So I'm going to suggest that, the county go in, or the school district go into them and point out this is taxpayer money that is being spent because someone is not doing their job right there first. Second, if it was the other way around, FP&L would rip out the innards and gonads of whoever cost them the $50,000 or the $100,000 on them. All right, I don't think that we're at the point of accepting from FP&L that, and if necessary, we go to the Public Utilities Commission on this.
Absolutely. We appreciate it. We will not let this go. We appreciate your concerns, and we will continue to battle with them. And do exactly as you're suggested, work our way up the ladder and make sure we can get it moving.
And the second thing we get back to is on the water utilities. I appreciate the staff comments, and Dave, I think it was you who caught it on the first go round. But if we're having repetitive issues on this, then we need to be talking to the county as to how do we stop this from happening again. Again, we don't accept this on our side when we have these types of problems. Again.
Oh, we will certainly speak with them and work with them. They are a good partner with us. We're going to do the best we can on this. What I like to convey is that keeping in mind, these are added costs, but these are costs that we would have paid for upfront in the beginning, regardless. So while there might be a small premium as a change order, these are ultimately included costs. If they had gotten them right, we would have paid everything up front anyway. It's not like just because they missed it, we get away without having to pay them for it.
My point was, I didn't even care about the cost. Well, I care about the cost, but I knew that. Mine was about the process.
Yeah.
Both FPL and water utilities, as you just said, Dave, have now delayed you closing out this job 6 months after the school opened.
Yeah.
That's not acceptable. So my point is too, and I agree with Michael, I just think an effort by staff or the school board should be made to go up the chain of command a little bit more. To say, guys, if we're going to be partners don't treat each other like this. So get your act together.
Okay. We will take both suggestions on both parties and work with them. Absolutely.
I'll make a motion that CORC has no objection to the school board considering FC4 with the recommendation that staff coordinate with Palm Beach County and FP&L to help assure that these problems are not reoccurring.
Put your second on that?
Yeah, comments before we vote.
Okay, I need a second and then we can comment.
Second.
Second by Tom. Comments?
Yeah, my comment on the FC4 is the same as on 4, 5, and 6, so it's the same comment from the next two. But the comment that I provided was that the AECOM reviews are not independent estimates. And all they're doing is regurgitating what's on the change order. If you go to 45, page 45. 17, well, there's a contractor provided right there. That's his backup. And that's what AECOM provided in their estimate. The exact same dollar amounts. All they did was a math check. They put those numbers up there. They said, yep, they added up. We're good to go. Now, the answer that was provided in my statement really didn't address my comment. It said, as noted in previous inquiries, I'll get to that in a second, the role of the project estimator, the SPAs, the AEs, and the CMs, that's not what my beef is with. It's with AECOM. It goes on to say that those people are required to provide sufficient backup for a change order to the reviewer. Only when all that data is provided does a fair and reasonable determination get issued. And you look at this, and if you go to the AECOM, I think it's page 41, you look at their estimate.
Am I going the wrong way? I am going the wrong way.
Right here. Oh, anyway, you trust me, they just copied what was on there. The second point on this is the answer to my question was, as noted in previous inquiries. I have brought this up before. In fact, I brought this up I checked my notes, April of 2019, when we were all meeting in person, and the comment the response at that meeting was, in the future, we will get the estimates. I said the same thing. We're not getting AECOM estimates. And I was assured by staff, okay, we're going to get those in the future for you.
Okay.
Now, isn't it their contract or
No, it is absolutely not. We are expected, internally, we are expected to provide a third party or a staff internal evaluation of pricing. A staff evaluation of pricing, not our own estimate. Our expectation, because again, in the past, this district had a group within facilities construction program management, right, that did the estimating, that did the validation themselves. Sure. They did their own look at the information that was there and basically said, did the same thing that the AECOM folks are doing. What you're seeing is the final product. You're seeing that, yep, these prices that they presented, yep, they're reasonable. What happened prior to this is a series of feedback of, no, that's garbage. Let me see, where'd you get your details? So AECOM staff would ask, because again, call it AECOM, they're part of us. Their member says to the contractor, I need more backup. You need to provide us further information to explain where you came up with that cost. Then they have to provide it. If our estimator does not think that it's right, he says, nope, that's way too much. So what you're seeing is, after maybe 3 or 4 rounds of go-rounds of, no, that's too much, or, hey, you didn't provide me enough backup for me to support the fact that that's the right price for something. They do that effort. What you're seeing here is simply a fair and reasonable evaluation. It just says, yeah, their prices have been done fair and reasonably.
Well, we'll go back to page 45. I mean, that's useless what they're providing. They need to provide a letter then, like the architect does. It says, I've reviewed it and it's fair and reasonable. 41.
45. Well, that's where you had the prices. 41 was the AE.
41, I'm sorry.
41 was the AE.
Yeah, if you look at that, it doesn't do anything for me. In the past, AECom has provided a detailed estimate. I've seen them a lot more than this. Those 4 lines, you add them up and you come up with a number. They've done it in the past.
Well, that's not our intention. What happens is we have that estimator does what he thinks it should be. Yeah, Matt from AECom. Matt evaluates this stuff and basically says, I could get, because Matt works for AECom or for a company of AEComs. He's like, I can't get that for that high a price. I can get it for a lot less. So he'll offer up that comment to them before you ever see anything. He'll say, no, that price is way too much. We're not willing to pay that amount. Am I on mute? Oh, no. Can you all hear me, by the way? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yes.
That's our estimating team, Matt and any of his backup from D. Stevenson. Those guys are basing it on what they can get. They know the industry better than most of us. So they're identifying those costs and knocking them down. What you're seeing is a final product. I mean, are you suggesting that we do want to show the detail of what Matt's estimate says it should have been?
He's been doing that in the past.
No, he hasn't. What he's been doing is basically saying, yeah, this is in a good range. Like, I came up with 27,000. These guys are at 31.
Yeah.
This is a good price.
But he's done that on this sheet here. He'll say his estimate for engineering is not 2,859. My estimate is 2,000. And then you'll say the material cost, and you'll show what his estimate is. I don't see any evidence that I can vote yes that he's done his job.
Well, and what I'm telling you is that you don't get to see all the behind the scenes things. What we are required to provide is if you will, a third party or an internal evaluation that the price is reasonable. We are basically saying the district staff, have evaluated it. Now, granted, we are using AECom with that, but we've done an evaluation and it is fair and reasonable. If it's not, you wouldn't have seen it. I mean, we wouldn't have even presented it if it wasn't fair and reasonable.
I'm used to seeing an independent estimate that somebody does, not even looking at what the contractor provides.
So
I'll do an independent estimate.
I appreciate where you're coming from, but it's just going to lead to itself being the exact phony thing. Oh, okay, well, we'll create something that says we came up with $27,000 or whatever this price is. We came up with 43.5 would be a reasonable price. They're at 46. Okay, that's fair and reasonable. So you want us to provide a detailed breakdown of what, if we were pricing it ourselves, as though we were the contractor, what we would have expected to pay for it. Is that?
That's what I've seen in the past.
We don't do that.
What I would suggest to move this one along and to keep it moving along, go back through previous agendas where you
I'll find it.
And I think send that on to Dave saying, look,
Sure.
I'm sorry that wasn't your understanding, your perception, but here's 3 examples from 3 previous meetings.
Okay.
And that's not what we're getting here. And we'll just see if that happened.
Okay.
So we've already had a first, we had a second, then we had discussion. So now we need polling, I suppose, to see if this one goes.
Okay, this is for FC4?
FC4.
Okay, Mr. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Doctor?
Yes.
Mr. Gelfand?
Yes.
Mr. Cheshire?
Yes.
And Mr. Needs? Okay.
Okay, SC5, John, Michael, and I also pulled it. So Michael, go ahead first. Still there, Michael? We lose everybody? Maybe.
All right, let's go. Mr. Gelfand, if you're there and you're having technical difficulties, if you, I don't know, can anybody else hear us?
Somebody
Yeah.
unmute. Oh, okay, Jim, you can hear us, all right.
Because usually Patricia's in the room and she can say she can hear us.
So
All right.
Yeah,
There we
now
go.
can hear.
All right. My question was on the electrical work here. It seemed that there have been a number of changes on this, and if there's a problem in the review process or why the items are held up for permit review.
This one I can answer specifically. This is a project in which we got a very late start. And we basically, the district staff made the decision that we were far enough along in the electrical design that we were basically at, I guess if we would call it 75%, when we went out to bid for this. Because this is a project that we needed to open up this school, this edition is opening up this summer. And we didn't start this. I think this went to the board last August. It's either August or September. And that was a function of the fact that district staff got a late start on kicking this off on the design. So this put a burden on the designer to get as much as they could designed, and this is what resulted from it. Our big final review for the building department led to quite a number of changes, necessary changes that we would have paid for with some premium, but nonetheless, it was a business decision to move forward with less than 100% drawings.
So one of my concerns is that this is a substantial addition, obviously, and if it was a standalone, of course, we would have required bidding for this, and this goes outside of that process. And almost every school were always under time constraints. Not all of them, but most of them were under time constraints. And how do we assure that this doesn't happen again?
How do we assure that it doesn't happen again? I do a better job of my job. And this was something that I got a late start on it. We didn't realize the nature of the need to get it done as quickly as it needed to. And we worked with an incredible team. Song and Associates is the architect on this, and they pulled the iron out of the fire. You know, the fact that we got an incredibly good set of plans, permittable set of plans in time to be able to bid them and award the contract by August. And then to add to that Suffolk Construction has done a magnificent job that they got, with what should have taken at least 12 months, they're going to get it done in around 9 or 10. So I say the failure probably starts with our planning process. We didn't know about this issue, this school, and got a late start. So we'll fix it. We do a better job now. We've had to delay schools. Mr. Porter's familiar with our ISOC changes in our capital budgeting, because if we couldn't get our state approvals, or we couldn't get under contract in time, we will delay the project a year, or in some cases 6 months. This one was one where we said we can't afford to delay it, so we pushed it forward, and this seems to be the one area where we were short on.
You know, I'll have to hear from the construction folks as to whether the dollar amounts and all this is reasonable, but thank you for the explanation.
Well, regarding if the dollar amount is reasonable or not, we don't know, because there was no independent estimate done. But my comment on this was that we went too early for permitting, apparently.
Yeah.
You said 75% drawings? Did the building services know they were reviewing incomplete drawings? I don't think they would have.
No, we went to bid before we had permits in hand.
Right.
So they had 75% drawings. The building department hadn't had a chance to give their final set of review comments, which led to considerable changes.
Yeah, and that was my comment. The architect was letting the building department do his QA, QC review. That's the way I felt about it, and that this should have been labeled a design error or admission.
Had we not pushed this to be they absolutely catch a lot of things. I mean, you know, before we were criticized for not having the building department doing their job or catching these things. And in fact, they did. Had we not been forcing the process forward, these would have been caught during the design process. The 75 going to 95 or 100, we would have caught them. The building department would have caught them we would have made these changes. And these changes would have been incorporated into the final documents that would have been bid. You wouldn't see any change orders for $143,000. In this particular case, the building department did their job in the timely manner. They were given, 75% plans or 95% plans with problems. We would have gotten.
Yeah, in this case, I felt the problems were excessive. If you look at the comments, what we paid for here, the engineer should have known, yeah, you need a smoke detector in this room. I mean, that's not the code services responsibility to say that. That's the engineer's to design per code.
It is, but if I give you 75% drawings and I tell you as the owner, hey, John, I'm not done yet. And yet you say, I'm going in for permit anyway. Well, yeah, the building department's going to find a whole bunch of stuff. And that stuff's going to come back to the contractor to have to price out. Even though the architect might have picked up and should have picked up on all the comments if they hadn't been rushed.
Well, I don't know if Tom's on the line or not, but I think you go to Tom and say, I'm giving you 75% drawings, he's going to say, no way, I'm not looking at these.
Exactly.
That was my point.
Once you get to so many comments, you just go, no.
Yeah.
I'm kicking them back.
That's all I have.
But I think because the building department's in-house, that's very different than it being an outside agency that could say, I'm kicking it back.
And when we ask them, can we work together to try to get this on the street?
That's why you've got that.
There's an understanding that they're gonna come to us afterwards with these failures.
My comment on this one is we've had previously a bunch of change orders related to security, and it's happened kind of after the fact.
Yes.
This is another security that I'll call after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
Are we finally getting to the point with our specs that the architects know what have to go in to handle our security?
No, a lot of
that it gets part of the GMP for future jobs, like O and 05. We still don't have stuff that
We got it at the very end. And Sam, I see you in the room. I don't want to put you on the spot, but the problem that we have, it's not a problem. It's just a function of the design. The school police will not assess a plan at 50% drawings because they don't know everything that's there yet. They don't know the physical features. Did we identify the landscaping and all the different cracks and crevices and changes that it might go on? They wait until they get near to a finished design before they can say, okay, yeah, I want devices, whatever security measures, I want them located at the following specific locations. It's not something that we can bring them in early on, and they might give the architect some feedback as to where the system needs to be headed, where they're probably going to want to focus, but the specifics of exactly how many devices and where they are and whether they should be pan tilt zoom or whatever types of things, that's not something that they're going to give us until near the end. Sam, I'm sorry, if you want, did you have any comments?
I was going to say, so on O, we met with school police 3 times. In their defense, as the design progresses, they don't see the landscape. Mainly it's the location of cameras and then card access. That may be the most frustrating thing to me. I was directly involved with 3 reviews with school police on O. And as they look at the plans, they just they want more, card readers, more, different devices. So, I mean, on O, we did it 3 times. I'm pretty confident that we have what they need. Costs a lot of money, but.
So our final tally, if you will, of devices, let's say, are certainly not going to be, validated until the end. I will say with Plumosa was a different story.
No, I'm talking in general at this point. My comments are more general.
In general, we're going to get them at the end.
I mean, you wouldn't be allowing a principal to come in making last minute changes. I know security is now held to this higher level. They, just like the water utility company and with FPL and with security, I think somebody's got to put their foot down saying, okay, no, at 75.
Well, but then on the flip side of this, we're going to let change orders happen because the fact of the matter is they're going to come back. Someone is going to come back who's much higher, much smarter than me at security measures and say, you know what, you missed this area over here, and we have to take care of this area, and these are going to be change orders. And at that time, you're going to then yell at me that we didn't get the design right up front. So that's why I say it's kind of that we try to do the best of holding on until the very end and getting it. Plumosa, bad example. Plumosa, I put a lot of pressure on those guys to get this design done and push it out the door. So school police were
I just
late
still
in it,
think
but-
they need to be held to the same standard that we would hold any other consultant to in terms of timeliness.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll get a $10,000 change order, but we won't get a $140,000 change order. Michael, you had your hand raised?
Yes. First, Ms. Dolan, I appreciate your efforts to present a united front for the various district departments. If it happens again, then I presume that my colleagues will be shouting really hard and stamping our feet. And despite it being the school police and security being this, something that no one can ever ask any questions about, and anything they want, like the military-industrial complex, they get, it's going to stop. I would say that it is absolutely unacceptable to believe that the school police do not have a checklist of things, for example, like card readers. Landscaping doesn't impact card readers. Okay? That's a function of where the entrances are and everything else. They don't have that checklist and they're not sharing that with you now, then they need to develop it. So let me step back for a moment as I'm talking before I think and ask, do the school police have a checklist of where the card readers and what type of items trigger camera?
They don't have, they may not have a checklist, but it's not that straightforward. You are envisioning this is a room type A, therefore it gets a camera. That's a room type B, therefore it doesn't get a camera or a card reader. And that is not how security measures work. There are systems that you have, for example, on a door, you have to evaluate both sides of the door, what's happening on one side, what's happening on the other. And so the rules aren't steadfast and finite. It is, to a certain extent, a matter of interpretation. Yes, I can absolutely get 3 different security specialists, and they will come up with 3 different sets of designs.
So if that's what's going on, that's absolutely unacceptable, and I'll start voting against it, and I'll start screaming like a banshee about it. Because if we're looking at, if every person who's a reviewer is going to have a different approach, and we're supposed to react to that, A, that screws up the system entirely. B, it undermines the very premise of what is being done, because it now is, instead of becoming rational, logical, and linear, it's now absolutely arbitrary.
Yeah. And we don't have 3 people. In this particular case, in the school district's case, we have 1 person who does that evaluation. So yes, I'm sure he probably has a mindset, a plan of how to attack each of the circumstances. And I would imagine that he evaluates each circumstance in the same way, but I don't know if it's necessarily something that he would be able to create a checklist or a sequence of evaluation points to determine whether a camera goes here or a card reader or what type or where. I think it's a little bit more of complexity.
So I will go back to other discussions that we've had, including the purchase of the bank at Jupiter High School. All right, and I understand that we don't want to have a public meeting where we lay out all the criteria. But on the other hand, we need to have from the school police, or they need to have, and it needs to be confirmed so that we understand that there is a logical, rational, and linear process for what is there. And the first aspect of this needs to be is, what is the goal? And not just that every student is going to be kept safe. We're going to spend, whatever it takes to do that. But for each item, what is the goal and what is the justification? Because again, I get to card readers and doors. When we have a plan, even at 75%, we should know whether or not a card reader needs to go in at that location. And for cameras, I understand a little bit on the landscaping going back and forth, but what are the criteria that the school has. And with
Gelfand, I gotta stop you. I gotta end this discussion because we're getting down an area where I do not want to go. I appreciate your need to.
No. All right, I do, because I'm looking at expenses that have no controls just because school police says so. And if there isn't a criteria that justifies it, then the expenses are just going to increase over and over and over again.
As I said, I believe they have a criteria. The gentleman who does the evaluation evaluates all the programs the same way. What that is, I don't know exactly what it is, and I don't dare offer a suggestion. That's why I'm saying this is not a matter of discussion at this point.
Yeah, Michael, let me chime in here. I'm seeing that their process is not refined. We don't care where they put cameras or card readers or whatever. That is part of the security design that we don't have to know about.
Right.
My issue is getting them more in line early on without having, I'll call it an excuse to say, no, they can't do it when the design plan is done. Once a design floor plan is done, they can do 50% of that layout, however they're going to do that layout. So my position is going to be, I'm going to support this and hope that staff has heard us loud and clear and can go back and somehow get school police in line with a process that we can get the majority of the security systems figured out by the time we get to GMP. And if we need a $10,000 change order when the job is under construction because they see something that really should be done, understandable. But not a $100,000 change order because they weren't brought on until the GMP was established.
And I guarantee you we will do that. Mr. Porter is absolutely correct. We will make sure that on all designs, again, this being the exception, please don't use this as an example.
But we've had it the last 3 meetings. We've had security change orders of 60,000, 70,000.
Right, well, but when we spend 10 times that on security measures and a school, that is a reasonable change order amount for a certain number of devices. So we're getting down an area where I really want to cease the discussion on the types, the amount of money, and the validation on the scope of those things.
We're not talking about that. I think we're talking
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I have not raised half of what the staff member has just referenced. What I have pointed out is that there needs to be a criteria. And what I'm hearing is that there actually is not a criteria that justifies what is being done. I've not asked for the types or the specifications or anything else. And Mr. Chair, I agree with you entirely on the timing, but I want to go one step further on that and suggest that the school police needs to have the criteria. They can keep that to themselves, at least for now, but that's where I'm at.
Okay, can I ask if there are any other questions from any other board members? Can I ask for the chair to call for?
Well, we had to vote on this one, and then it was up for comments. So we had a first and a second.
Oh, that's right. So
We had a first and a second. These were all comments. Now you poll.
Okay, Mr. Berger.
Thank you. Can I pass?
No?
Yeah, he can pass.
You're not allowed to, unless you have a conflict.
No, just pass. I'll come back.
Oh,
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, Mr. Porter.
I approve.
Mr. Doctor?
Yes.
Mr. Gelfand?
No.
Mr. Cheshire?
Yes.
Mr. Needs?
Yes, this time,
Mr. Berger?
No, for the same reasons given by Mr.
So we have 2 no's.
2 no's, 4 yeses?
Yes.
Okay, there's a comment. I have to explain to the school board why the no answers exist. So that they can take it under consideration on whether they want to object or accept the project.
If I heard right, and let me try to summarize, it's that the process needs to be tightened up so that we end up with less change orders than we have had for security design.
More, I don't know, more, what's the word I'm looking for? Clarity, more Michael, help me out here.
So there's two areas. One is that there's timely review, and second, that there is a checklist or defined process for determining what the needs are.
That's what we want.
So you're
Clarity was the
recommending,
word I was looking for.
you guys are recommending that Formosa have 2 no votes?
And because we need to, staff needs to do a more timely review, or have incorporate a more timely review of the security design, and that there needs to be a checklist, a suggested checklist.
Or
That's a
security
process.
evaluation.
Michael, you're talking about a process checklist, not that we would ever get to see how many cameras they have going in, how many card readers, where are they going? We're not going to, we don't want to
Well,
see that.
that's exactly what you, that was really.
I have not raised that issue at all. The staff member has, but I have not. I've been purely on that there be a rational, logical, and linear approach to evaluating the project.
Right, so what I'm hearing is you use the term criteria. To me, I read that as a specification.
Exactly.
In terms of a process.
But that the staff have that, not necessarily that they give it to us. That when they review, that the staff has their checklist so that they know what they are looking for.
Right, school police. Right, that school police would have their own checklist, just like.
All right, we understand that the checklist, so if Mr. Doctor can put down that it's a checklist / process validation.
Yeah, it's that school police would have their own criteria that they can go through a plan at an early stage and try to figure out where they want things.
Yes.
Again, we're, okay.
So the vote is.
All right, moving on.
The vote is 5-2.
Dave, it also sounds like he wants like a district master spec.
No.
From school police.
We don't want to get into.
And we
the
won't do that.
details. No, we
But
won't.
you guys are rejecting the project. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, it was approved 4-2.
4-2.
And your
So
dissent
there are
votes
two
are
negative
based
votes.
on, your dissent votes are based on the desire for staff to have this criteria / process.
At least that's my objection.
That's where I am now, and hopefully these matters get resolved, because otherwise my objections may become more substantial.
Okay, I want to move on because we're going to have to extend our meeting here coming up soon. FC6, John, you pulled it and I pulled it.
Yeah, my comments were the same as for SC4 about the AECOM estimate, so that's all I had.
Okay. The other question I had was, I thought our only rented portables were at the Verde Holding School. We have rented portables
Sure.
elsewhere?
As a matter of fact, we went through a process because originally, you might recall this from years ago, we were piggybacking on another county's
Well, that was
process.
for concretables, though.
No, it wasn't. No, it was for rented portables.
You've always had rented
Concretables don't exist anymore. Nobody makes them.
I know, but I thought we were just moving our concretables.
No,
around
no,
when
this,
we needed portables.
no, it was the, we were piggybacking on Lee County or somebody like that, rented portables, and we were asked, and purchasing went through and created our own RFP, and now we have our own contract. At that time, the question was brought up about, it was a student overflow management process. And you had asked us at the time to please get back with you as to our process for evaluating what school gets it. And we do. We have an evaluation team that goes through and.
You entered.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We have rented portables and we've always had that plan, so that's fine.
Yeah. LC Swain
Okay.
Conservatory has two.
Okay. Too much information. You answered my question.
I have to step out for 1 minute. I'm sorry.
Can I ask?
Oh, yeah, we need a motion on FC6.
I move FC.
Make a motion that there's no objection to the board considering FC6.
Seconded. Okay, now poll.
Mr. Berger. Mr. Berger said yes. Okay. Mr. Porter.
Yes.
Mr. Doctor.
Yes.
Mr. Gelfand.
Yes.
Mr. Cheshire.
Yes.
And Mr. Needs.
Okay, FC7, Bear Lakes. Michael, you pulled it and I pulled it.
Why don't you go first while I get my notes popped up?
Actually, I pulled it because of the unpurchased scoped issue, but now I realize that that's buyout savings, so
that removes my concern that I thought they were pulling scope out of the project, but they're not. Correct, Dave?
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
That removes my objection.
It was the same, looking at mine, yeah, that was the same I had also. So I'll make a motion that we have no objection to the school board considering FC7.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
John, all right, any comments? Discussion? No?
Okay, because Mr. Berger has had to leave the room, so we will pass on him, so we'll then have to go the remaining 6 people. So Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Doctor?
Yes.
Mr.
Dave?
Gelf? Oh, yes?
Don't we have to ask his substitute to vote if he's gone from the meeting, Mr. McCoy?
I don't think so, because
We already have a quorum.
we have a quorum.
Okay.
Holly?
Hold on.
You muted yourself again, Holly. You were there. Now you go.
Okay. I believe that for voting purposes, since Mr. Berger has left, then the alternate would step in. It's not a quorum issue.
But he's left the room for 5 minutes, not for the whole meeting. If we have a regular in-person meeting and somebody goes to the bathroom and we still have a quorum, you still vote with who you got.
Yeah, I think the concern that we have is that each board member has a voting person at CORC. And so under the temporary policy, we don't have 2 members, we only have 1. So in order for each board member to have a voice on a particular issue, my recommendation would be that if Mr. Berger is not in the room, that then Mr. McCoy would be the one to vote.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Patrick, are you on the line? Patrick, you there?
Okay, so if we don't have Mr. McCoy, we're going to skip that.
We postpone and move to the next one.
Okay,
Back to that one.
Mr. Porter?
I already called this all.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I went, okay,
Hey,
sorry.
you called everybody and then Tom was out of the room. For FC7.
No, I didn't.
No.
I waited because he was going out for FC6. Okay, so
FC7?
FC7, I have Mr. Porter.
Yes.
Mr. Doctor?
Yes.
Mr. Gelfand?
Yes.
Mr. Cheshire?
Yes.
Mr. Needs?
Yes.
And I ask for, and Mr. Berger just walked back in the room. Are we allowed to pull him? Mr. Berger, do you vote yes or no for FC7?
I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna hear what everybody else has to say.
We all said yes.
We already-
No
we all said
discussion.
yes.
Okay, good.
So that was a yes.
All
That was a
right.
yes for the record.
FC8, John, you pulled it.
Okay, this is change order with CAS, the reconciliation of the GMP. And there was, back to the unpurchased scope, there was a credit of 290,000 that was offered as unpurchased scope. And my question was, why wasn't the overhead profit, insurance, and bond returned along with the dollars for the unpurchased scope? The answer I was given was overhead and profit is a fixed cost. We'll get to that in a second. And the bond and insurance coverage on this project were individual policies, so we will not see any refund.
Yeah.
Now, bond is not a fixed cost, was my comment. And it's been my experience that when a contractor buys a bond from the surety says, how much is this project? $10 million, okay, here's your cost. And then when the project is done, the surety goes to the contractor, what'd you end up with? Well, $9 million. Okay, well, this is your actual cost for your bond then. And you're saying that's not the case on this particular project?
No, no projects in which they do the bond, because if we were to do a change order mid-project and reduce the contract by 500,000, at that time, we would turn to the bonding company and say, okay, you need to reduce the value, but they're in the middle of the contract. They would give money back. At the end of the project, both the insurance company and the bonding company have borne all the risk. All the risk is already done and over with. That's why at the end, when we're doing these closeouts on a fixed contract, a lot of the contractors, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot in the room here, but a lot of the contractors, when they do I don't know what it's called, if it's a blanket policy or a practice policy, where they spread their contracts over their one carrier over a lot of contracts, they have more flexibility to be able to audit the risks because they have other risks on other projects. So they are on occasion able to grant money back based on the reduced value. On hard contracts, CAST, for example, CAST doesn't do this kind of work regularly, so they actually have fixed single project contracts for insurance. That risk for insurance has already been borne completely by the insurance carrier till the very end. So at the end, they're like, no, I bore the risk of a $10 million project. I don't get to then give you money back and say, because it was only $9 million worth of risk. At the time that the contract went through the entirety of the contract, they bore a $10 million risk, let's say.
I understand that from a standard CGL type of policy, but not the surety. The surety is a different
Insurance
story.
is different. Surety is different
Yeah.
than insurance.
Because the surety's risk, yes, it's continued, but their risk went down when we cut. Let me tell you something, if it went up to 11 million, they'd be asking for a higher premium.
Mm-hmm.
So if it goes down to 9 million, they would.
Well, but in order to get to 11 million, I would have had to have done a change order earlier, because at closeout, if we're closing out, we're getting money back. So it's always going to be deducted. If we were increasing the contract to 11 million, there would have been a change order at some point during the previous process, and they would have said, yeah, I want additional premium for the extra $1 million. Just like during a change order, we say, we're taking $1 million out of your contract. Well, give us $1 million worth of your premium back. The bonding company.
Can we double check that issue regarding the surety?
I guess what I'm hearing you're saying is this project was different than all the rest of them. CAST on this particular project?
Yeah, in this particular project, they did, for example, I know the insurance carrier on this one was not, they don't have a blanket, or what do you call it, a group policy,
Umbrella.
Like an umbrella policy.
So they bought a specific bond.
They bought They bought project bonding instead of
Right.
umbrella bonding for the whole company.
And you're saying.
So the bond at the end, they basically say, oh, we're done. We've borne that. The bond is basically a risk, if you will. Forgive me, I know I'm way out of my league on this one, right?
Well, that's okay.
Bond is basically a risk validation process as well, right? The money is there to make sure that if the guy runs away, the contractor defaults, there's money there to be, so he's taking that risk, making sure he's got the money to be able to cover that.
But what I'm hearing you say, I guess, David, correct me if I'm wrong. You got a 12-month project. In month number 1, you say, okay, we decided we're not going to build a running track or something. So we're going to get the bond and the overhead profit and all that back.
Yep.
But if we did that on month number 11, we wouldn't have gotten it back.
Well, if you got month 11 of 12, you would have gotten a small portion back, yeah, because most of the risk has been borne. But yeah, and ultimately the problem on these ones, what you're referring to is we're long gone. They're long done. They've already exceeded the time limit of the insurance or the bond is now done, because the bond was for a 12-month construction project. We're at month 15, 16 trying to close it out.
But he doesn't have any risk, the bonding company, surety doesn't have any risk that you're not going to pay the subcontractor because he's not due any money.
But he had to allocate all that money to our project for all 12 months instead of taking that extra $1 million that we're saying we're going to get back or whatever the money, and being able to reallocate it to another project. So the money that he had to, a bonding company has to allocate that funds and can't risk having it spread out in 2 different places. So 10 million, he could have taken that $1 million and used it towards someplace else.
I guess that's a minor component here, but what about the overhead profit? How come we're not getting the profit? We didn't have to do the work.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, and Jim, you want to step in on this, but our contracts make it clear what are the fixed costs.
Let me read you what it says.
Okay.
This is under overhead profit. If work is authorized only for a part of the project, the fee paid shall be proportional to the amount of work authorized by the owner. If we take work away, he doesn't get overhead and profit on it.
But it's established as a fixed cost in the GMP. So it's not something that,
Yeah, but it still says if you get it back, you're gonna reduce it. You can reduce it at the end. In fact, that's what Cass did under change order number 2.
Is they gave us
the cost of the track.
Sure.
He says, here's your overhead and profit back.
Correct.
Here's your insurance money, here's your bond money. Okay, insurance and bond, forget about that, but overhead and profit, I'm not sure why he gets to keep that at the end of the project. I don't think it is a fixed fee.
well,
That'd be a lump sum contract.
well, no, but but the contract terms define, forgive me, I don't have the contract in front of me.
It's proportional. He gets paid proportional to the amount of work authorized by the owner. In this case, we deleted some work at the very end.
Okay. Well,
So anyway, so just to move things on, please look at.
I will.
I don't follow up.
I will
Michael,
follow up.
Michael, you have your hand raised?
It should not be, sorry.
Okay. Jim Kennard, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, the screen shows right now what our board items have looked like for a decade or more. And in the first line, or the second line, it says the fixed fees are general conditions, construction phase fee, and overhead and profit. So that's how we've been operating for a long, long time.
Yes, and I think what drew my attention to this one is change order number 2 with Cass. That was where they removed the track and they gave us the overhead and profit back.
Fair
Oh,
enough.
hey, look what they're doing. A precedent has been set here.
Okay.
Why aren't we getting it back under change order number 3?
We will.
Is that on follow-up?
We will do that on follow-up. So are there, were there, who's else? Who was
Let's,
there?
you were there on.
Yeah, I move we move forward with FC board section.
Second.
Second by Tom, then you need to poll.
Okay, poll, Mr. Berger.
Yes.
Mr. Porter.
Yes.
Mr. Doctor.
Yes.
Mr. Gelfand.
Yes.
Mr. Cheshire.
Yes.
And Mr. Needs.
Yes.
Okay, at this time, perhaps can we take a break to, we have to vote to extend beyond 11:30.
So that's what I was gonna do next.
Oh, sorry.
I need a motion to at least extend us, let's say till 12 o'clock.
I'll make that motion.
You seconded that, Michael? All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by John. All right, poll us.
Okay, to extend the meeting to 12, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Gelfand, before.
To note that I probably will have to drop off sometime between now and then. I hope I don't kill the quorum.
You just killed 15 seconds of that. Yes, I agree.
All right,
Okay, Mr. Berger, yes, okay, Mr. Porter.
Yes.
Mr. Doctor.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Gelfand.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Cheshire.
Yes.
And Mr. Needs.
Yes.
Okay, so we do have an extension
All right,
till 12 o'clock,
Let's
so.
go. FC9, Michael, you pulled it. I did too.
I believe that it was the same concerns we had on the, no. So I did not understand how we had a credit of $7 million.
Oh, forgive me, let me scroll down. Basically, it's a credit of $7 million, but it's more of a, if you will, and I want to say it's the wrong word, is a shell game, but 6 million of that $7 million is the direct purchase orders. Those are items that have already been spent, paid for by the district, and we're getting the money back from the contractor. As opposed to, in my previous life, under a different world, we would actually have to do the DPO change orders during the course of construction and actually pull them out of construction, out of the contract, in order for the governing body to be able to buy the materials ourselves. In this particular case, the district's process and procedures are: we fund the direct purchases ourselves and receive that money back from the contractor. And it makes it a little bit easier because we can reconcile it much cleaner at the end when we do it one time.
I understand the process of direct purchase orders. My question would be, should we not be identifying those before we do a GMP? And that's the first question. The second question is, what funds do they come from, and are those properly debited?
Well, I'll answer the first part. Yes, we do generally know what they are, but as is the case with every direct purchase I've ever done, if we said we're going to buy $10,000 worth of widgets, when we buy those widgets, I might only need $9,700 worth of widgets. So if I took out, and this is why in my previous life I hated them, yes, John, we would have to take them out and then give them back and then take them out again. So this is a much cleaner process where we don't take them out up front. We just wait until the end and we credit it all very cleanly, exactly how much was spent. As far as where the money comes from or how it's credited, my apologies. I think Ms. Evans may have stepped off, but I don't know the accounting behind it other than the fact that the district has money set aside to cover these direct purchases. And yes, when this change order comes back, Treasury will take a credit on all of these to that account. Jim Kennard, I see you raise your hand. Do you want to expand?
Yeah. So the process here is unique. And what happens is we do identify sales tax savings right in the GMP. And as soon as the GMP is funded completely 100%, our purchasing department is permitted to go in and adjust the purchase order to take out the cost of materials plus sales tax. We pocket the sales tax and we buy the materials, and the contract requires the CM to manage the materials as if they purchased it. So this is the way at the end till we actually adjust the purchase order officially with a change order.
Yeah, I think we've been doing this for a while. I think it's a good idea. Is there a corresponding savings we should see, or are we seeing? As I see that there's another line for bonds and insurance.
Well, the one to focus on is the one that says excess sales tax savings. That means that our purchasing department did a better job than we guessed that we would do in the GMP, and we're returning even more money to the district's coffers than we anticipated.
So do we budget actually for sales tax savings when we do the GMP, and that this is going to be something we anticipate a change order to remove?
What we do is we assume we're not getting any sales tax savings to start with, and then we take credit for all the good work we do in collecting it.
In my previous life, we used to take the credit up front so that the board got to see that we were going to get a credit, get a savings when they were going to approve it. So here we take it through to the end.
So if
Bonus at the end.
if the sales tax is what construction materials, the 6.5% or 7%?
Where you buy them at.
I'm sorry?
I think it's based on where you buy them at. If you buy materials in North Carolina, you're paying North Carolina sales tax. I would think.
Correct. And correct. If I may jump in, even the state of Florida has various sales tax rates. For instance, for prefabricated steel, it's a much lesser sales tax rate, believe it or not.
Okay, so that would be my question, because at an average of 6%, I'm just pulling that number out of the air, the sales tax savings should be about, what, $360,000, just rounding it grossly.
There's even a, and forgive me, I know I'm going to get it wrong, but on the first $500 of something, it's 6%, and then something like after the I can't remember exactly what the percentages are or the numbers, but it's a graduated scale on the sales tax on items. And I know I got the wrong numbers, but I know it is. There's a number.
And I presume because the project manager manages the materials, that's why we don't get a reduction on the percent of overhead?
The contractor buys the materials just like they're buying it. And because the district is then paying for them directly, it avoids a sales tax.
What he's saying is we don't get the bond and insurance back, which we shouldn't, or the overhead and profit. Well, he keeps all that because he's still putting that.
He's still
material
implementing it, yeah.
Managing the process.
The only thing I pulled this for was that the change order value on this whole project only came to 0.7%.
And that's pretty unheard of. So to me, that's kudos to
There's
both.
no kudos here.
Yeah, there is to the architect as well as the contractor, because that shows me a well-managed project when the change order level was that low. Yeah, it was a new school, but still, the drawings weren't well done, then there'd be more change orders.
Right, and and in fact, Harvard Jolly is the architect on Verde, and Moss Construction. They both did a great job as a true team to ensure that they tried to limit those things. Plus, it was, again, also another situation, Mr. Gelfand, as I said earlier, we didn't do it quite as good a job planning. This is the first year we started, and this was, oh my gosh, hurry up, let's get this thing going, let's get it out. That's why we had the holding school, and you guys were very patient with us as to accepting the need for the holding school, and then at the same time trying to design and build this thing and get it done in 12 months, which in fact happened. The kids moved out of Verde in early June, and they started knocking down the whole place and had it up and ready, CO'd by the following June for open in August.
Need a motion on FC9.
No objection to the motion is that CORC has no objection to the school board considering it.
Second by John. Call us, please.
Tom Berger.
Yes.
Mr. Porter.
Yes.
Mr. Doctor.
Yes.
Mr. Gelfand.
Yes.
Mr. Cheshire.
Yes.
Mr. Needs.
Yes.
Okay, PC1, I had pulled it. I don't know if you can pull up the pre-qualified construction vendor list.
No, I can't.
Okay, well, it's a simple question.
I apologize. There were 4 different files and they were impossible to download.
On this list, I mean, it says board approved as of April 2021. But yet some of the expiration dates then are listed as 4/15/2021, like 6 days before. I highlighted them. So why would there be any expiration dates prior to when that list was approved? There's a dozen on there like that. So follow up. I don't need no answer now.
Yeah.
But none of those dates should predate the approval list. And if so, then why?
Okay, I'll ask purchasing. That'll be a follow-up.
There's one in here expiring June 17th, and yet it was just approved in April. No, that wouldn't be. It's only good for 3 months.
Right. And I understand what you're saying. And the question would be, does it mean that on June 18th, the new contract, even though it was approved in April, that its start date isn't until June 18th? But I'll find out if it took I'll report.
Well, as I said, one's already expired.
I had one. That's
7 days prior to when this list was approved. So that didn't. It almost seemed like somebody didn't update that column.
Okay.
But
Let me ask on purchasing.
I need a motion to go forward on that. PC1.
Motion to go forward on PC1.
Tom made a motion. Need a second?
Second.
Second by John. Poll us, please.
Mr. Berger.
Yes.
Mr. Porter.
Yes.
Mr. Doctor.
Yes.
Mr. Gelfand.
Yes.
Mr. Cheshire.
Yes.
Mr. Needs.
Yes.
I'm getting faster at it.
Okay, we're now down to PC5, and I pulled that. I'm sorry. Yes, you are. PC2.
PC2, I have the same comments for 2 and 3, so we can cover them both.
Okay.
This one, my comment was the scope of the work is very general, does not provide enough detail to properly evaluate the fee. This is design services, of course, and this has a history as well. I brought this up way back in 2019 in a CORC meeting where we were all together. On that item, the scope of work that was listed was way too general. There was a big discussion about it. We spent like a half an hour on it. Staff said that the details of the scope of work were included in the consultant's fee proposal. And so I said, we'll just reference it in the contract. They didn't want to attach it to the contract. So I said, we'll just reference it in the contract then, but don't attach it. And at that meeting, staff agreed to do that. But it never happened.
It didn't happen on this one.
Now again, this came up in December of 2020. I had a comment regarding the same thing. I got a phone call from Jim Kennard that says, hey, let's get on a teleconference with Mark and Holly and Jim. We were all on it and said, let's go over this again. So we went through it all over again. And at that telephone meeting, staff agreed to at least, at a minimum, do a better job of providing the detailed scope in the contract of what we were paying design services for. So that brings us to today with these. And my response in this particular one was, a reason why the scope wasn't provided is having completed Citrus Cove Elementary School using the same designer, we know what we paid for in that design and also what was necessary work to include, thereby ensuring that these fees are correct. Well, we don't know that. And if that's the case, why don't you document it? Why don't you put it in here and say what we're designing? Because if you just, I don't know if you want to pull it up, you want to look at it, but it's very general. I'll read it to you. We're increasing dining, kitchen, and servicing area. We're remodeling core-related spaces, associated parking, site modification, and locate temporary kitchen and dining area as required within the established budget. Goes on to say, civil engineer will do expansion, site improvements, stormwater utilities, and service yard improvements.
Okay.
I don't know what we're getting. I don't know what we're designing. I have no idea. And I don't know how, if this ever went to legal, you guys would win a case on this. Because that's all you're telling the designer to do. And he can make up his mind what to do. He can come back and say, oh, no, that wasn't, you want 5,000 feet for a new kitchen? No. You want a kitchen consultant? No, that wasn't included in mine.
Well, no, what you're saying is you expect a detailed explanation from staff of what we're paying a designer to do. They do due diligence during their design process. They're the ones who evaluate, do we need to do 5,000 square feet or can we get away with 4,200 feet?
After we approve this amount.
But this is a design process. Yes, they have to evaluate the conditions. I mean, that's, again, if that's the suggestion, then I need, well, first of all, I need a whole lot more staff because I'm going to end up having to design the whole thing myself. Yeah, because that's exactly what happens.
You have this information. He gave you a proposal detailing exactly what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And you agreed to it. We haven't seen it. We don't know. And I don't necessarily need to see it. Just reference it in the contract was my first suggestion. So that if you ever need to pull it off the shelf, you can do that. And legal can say, Holly can come up and say, hey, let's go back this April 16th proposal from the consultant. He did say he was going to do it. But what I do expect is a little bit more written into the scope of work in the contract of what we're getting.
I know that scope, I know exactly what it is. Again,
But the court.
I understand that. And again, I can go to the fact that we've already designed this particular one once so that we don't have same errors and whatnot. And we know the hurdles that we're going to have.
We're not saying that won't happen. We're saying that if you left tomorrow, you won the lottery and you took off, and all of a sudden there's litigation against this firm, they're going to just go to the black and white. That's all that exists. And the black and white's going to say, your scope of work was so limited, of course the architect's charging you additional services.
This has come up in the past with survey services. You guys have come in here with a change order to the consultant. Well, survey services weren't included. Survey services included in this one or not?
I will, let me get back with purchasing on you because I'm committed that scope of services that you read off is more than satisfactory to understand what they're doing. I don't know the details. Are they going to build 4,200 square feet? Or are they going to build 5,000 square feet of cafeteria? Or are they going to build, 250 square foot cafeteria addition? Or is it going to be a 400? I don't know those details, and I don't.
No, but you can still do a little bit better job.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Than this. It says we're going to get between 6,200 and 65 square feet of, and then well, it's a whole different bunch of things. A dining area, kitchen area, servicing area, remodel the core-related. What's the core-related spaces?
Bathrooms.
Bathrooms, hallways.
Hallways. We're going to do the clinic?
Core-related spaces. Core-related.
Administration?
Yes, administration areas. But we don't know what those are. That's what we're paying them for, is to come in and go, you know what, we don't need to, based on the square footage of the space and the additional students, because this whole core expansion is because of well, not even that. It was from way back when what am I drawing a blank on that word? When we went, when the state came in and said, you have to get fewer students in the same size. And then we had to, that's the one. Class size reduction is why we're doing core expansions, because these schools, we ended up having to add modular classrooms onto all these, and we never expanded the core. We never expanded the kitchen. We never expanded the media center, cafeteria, the administrative office. So we have to do an evaluation. If we knew what the size of the spaces were that needed to be expanded, and well, then that means I'd have to have staff doing the design and say, add 15,000 square feet of this.
I think the problem is that there is a document that is written up at some point that could be referred to in the contract, so that although it's not actually in the contract, the reference is there.
Yeah, it's on the show.
So if there is litigation, you're not precluded from using that as evidence under the pro evidence rule.
Okay, I'll ask, if it's okay with you, I'll ask purchasing, we'll revisit this again. I know you don't want to go back because you've gone through this.
What I'd like to do is a follow-up, and definitely do it for the next meeting so we don't forget. And if, as John's saying, you're actually getting a 4-page letter proposal from the architect that comes with their fee, that might be way more descriptive of what they're doing. Cut the price off the bottom and cut and paste that document to the contract, because that is even helping you. Because then when you come back asking us for a change order because, well, no, their contract didn't say they were doing that, anything we can do to tighten up and make their contracts more defined is only going to help everybody.
Okay, I appreciate that. The
I'll
feedback.
leave it up. I don't know if she wants to add. Yeah.
I don't, I think that's a good workaround, because what we can do is we could create a title for whatever document that a design firm would submit. And then in the contract, we can define that as one of the terms of the contract documents, which would allow a later document to be incorporated into the contract. And, should we need it, God forbid, in a dispute or something like that, we could incorporate it.
Well, you may not even need to go further than just incorporating their original proposal, which may be a lot more than 4 lines of text in a contract.
Right.
And that just gives you your definition of the scope.
I move that we go forward on this, but with those caveats for future reference.
Can I ask, can we do John, may I ask, or can we do PC 2 and 3 together?
Yes, I can.
Can we?
And that was a motion by Tom.
On PC 2 and 3.
Right. And so do I have a second on that motion?
John
seconded it?
Okay, Mr. Berger.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Needs.
Yes.
Okay. I have pulled PC 5 and just some general comments. I like the idea of how it's getting broken up with Hatcher being completely responsible for the field house. I think that's a really good way to break that project up, and he's proven that he did a really good job at Jupiter High School.
Yeah.
My big question is, and maybe it's all because of the classroom costs per student station, but Gardens High School, which we did probably 10 years ago, maybe just a little bigger building, came in at $95 million. And now we're able to do a high school at $76 million, 20 million less, 10 years later. Is that because it's so much smaller?
It is.
Wow. Okay.
The spaces, again, Angel would probably be better served, but the square footage spaces are smaller.
Even as Angel said, it's like 150,000 square foot less than what we've done previously for high schools.
And it's a question of, did we build a 900 square foot classroom in a high school? Sure. And now we're building a 775 or Sam, I don't know what they are, but 800.
Yeah.
So translates in.
My final question on this one was, we had about 6 million in direct purchases for the Verde School, and the GMP is only showing 800,000 planned for direct purchases for this school. To me, that seems like it needs another zero after it if we're comparing this school to Verde.
That's just the sales tax savings portion, so that's just the 6%.
But I didn't think you showed the sales tax in the GMP.
No, I think what we're saying is we're recognizing. Remember how we got 108,000 on we're getting.
Right, so that was not the direct purchase number? I thought that's what was listed as direct purchases by owner.
Hey, David, could I?
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
Okay, so we're talking about O GMP. The guaranteed sales tax savings for this, that's part of this GMP, is $750,000 in sales tax savings. That represents approximately $12,500,000 in materials that are going to be directly purchased by the district.
Okay. That's fine. I thought the GMP stated that it was, let's see, back up here. Yeah, the direct purchases are not necessarily listed, so I misread that. Okay. All right, let's move on. You need a motion for this one? Blue Doctor left the room, so maybe we'll hold until he comes back and go on to the last one. You want to do that? Can we do that?
Can we, let's do that, because we can come back and declare votes, motions.
PC 7 was the only one left pulled, and I pulled that one. Let me see why I pulled that one. PC 7.
That was Jupiter High.
Yep, I'm getting my notes now. It's a detail, but I mean, when I went through the details, it's $22,000 for a Hoover well pump, which to me just threw me for a loop that an irrigation well pump was that much. So I priced it out myself, and a 5 horsepower pump comes in at about $2,500.
Okay.
So I just would like a follow-up for what am I missing that we are paying $22,000 for a submersible 5 horsepower irrigation pump down in a 4-inch well.
Okay, I can do that. Angel, I wouldn't venture that you have that kind of knowledge at the tips of your fingers. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to accept that. We will find out for sure.
Yeah, we will follow up.
And if I'm reading this right, we're basically building a little farm for 1.2 million? Yes, that's a question.
Yeah. We're basically turning in the area of the school that's sloped down to the street.
I saw the site plans and the drawings are very well done, and it just, when I got done looking at everything, it seems like, wow, 1.2 million for a little farm. Hopefully it'll be a very successful program.
And it makes money.
Oh,
I hate to say it that way.
Okay, well then that's worth it.
They do. It's a plant sales. They have a big effort there.
Well, I happen to know the irrigation guy because I've done work with him before. So, all right, obviously I want to pull that. We'll have to wait for the.
Where you going with the? Can we pay for part of it with their money? No.
Yeah, I think that works. I think it works.
If you want a winery.
I think their proceeds probably goes into buying seed and fertilizer and all the other stuff.
Yes.
Be self-sustaining program.
And this is actually going to be a great one because the high school students help out on this.
Michael, you're unmuted. Did you have a comment?
Yes, a couple of things. One is I want to be careful regarding equity between the schools. If we're doing $1 million project for something that, well, it's education related, it is not part of our normal specs. Second, Mr. Chair, I'm going to have to leave in about a minute here, so if that endangers the quorum.
No, it doesn't. We're still good.
And last is, as you get to the minutes, I do think that the way that Ms. Hahn has relabeled the non-meeting or the non-quorum minutes works, just to let you know about that. And I would suggest that with the last set of minutes that the motions be restated to follow what is our standard, and that is that CORC has no objection to the board considering whatever it may be. With that, I wish everyone a great rest of the week, and thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Ms. Gelfand.
So we will wait to do our final motions when on PC 5 and PC 7 when Lou returns.
Okay.
We'll get back on the agenda.
Where are we?
We are down to in progress work. Dave, I think we're going to hold that until next time we can, simply because we've got 10 minutes left.
And quite honestly, in all honesty, it's on the meet. Nobody likes hearing me talk anyway, so you guys can please review it on your own. It's the same pictures and same activities of what we've done this month. Not much different than any other past months.
Okay. We've got no follow-up, so I guess we're down to review policies. So these have been updated, Jim Kennard?
So I was unable to, for lack of time, get you anything in advance of the meeting for you to look at. And rather than try to jam it in the last 9 minutes, I would propose that we defer to the next meeting.
I was going to ask you that, and I'm glad you said that, so.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, we will defer that.
There is one issue, the policies that may affect the new high school. The one that I was recommending as far as the charging stations for electric vehicles.
How would that affect the policies?
Well, I would like to see it added to these new schools as well as any future schools.
And I don't think that affects the change order policy or the other policies we.
Well, I was told it was going to be brought up under policies.
Yes, if I could answer the question.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, so we think a better place for that is in our master specifications and design criteria. That way we have a chance to debate it and what we think we should afford or what we shouldn't afford, and put it in an easier document to adjust.
Well, is there any way to include it in, all I was asking for at this time was empty conduit to be brought out to the parking lot to where the future stations would be, and incorporate that into the current construction projects.
Understood. We can ask.
That would be part of the spec and not a policy that the board approves. We can easily ask for that to go into the master spec, because we've asked for a bunch of things before for the master spec, because that's what goes to the architects and engineers for them to be given direction for where to run those conduit. But the policy we're talking about is talking to about the contractor, how they're allowed to charge change orders and what is considered buyout savings. And
well, there was some confusion with
the term policy would be this stuff. That would be something you would just bring up in general discussion for us to suggest that. And then as a committee, it gets endorsed to staff to then add that into the future master spec.
Well, then I'll bring it up at the next meeting.
Yeah, do it the next meeting, because we got 6 minutes. And as soon as everybody gets back in the room, we will then.
We have roll call man who's left.
Yeah, roll call man will take care of this for both, and we probably do PC 5 and PC 7 at the same time.
So we're currently waiting for Dave to return. He can run us a roll call, and we will finish up the consent agenda.
Who keeps the minutes?
Susan does. She's online.
So can we do the first and seconds and then do the roll call?
If you have any changes for the minutes, we can.
No, I don't mean that.
Usually what I do for the minutes is
No, I don't mean that.
Okay.
I mean, right now, if we took a vote without Nolan, can we do that? Because Susan's taking the minutes, so she'll know what the vote is. Never mind, he's there.
He's there.
David, they approve the minutes?
PC 5 and 7.
Susan, we're good. Do 5 and 7 at the same time. Go ahead and start the polling.
Okay, PC 5 and 7, the motions have been made. So, Mr. Berger.
Yes.
Mr. Doctor.
Yes.
Mr. Porter.
Yes.
Mr. Gelfand.
He left.
Oh, that's right. Mr. Cheshire.
Yes.
And Mr. Needs.
Yes.
Minutes.
Okay. Anyone with issues on minutes? Hearing none, minutes are accepted. Review and set our next agenda. We've given you a couple things to try to come back to us for at the next meeting.
Yes.
Some of the stuff you can do, follow up between meetings, like the Hoover pump doesn't have to come back to us. It's kind of my personal question.
Well, we'll put it in the thing so it's a record.
Curious now.
That's the thing I was going to say. Everybody else is going to want to know about this Hoover pump. So we'll make sure it's.
He did before the asbestos was taken out.
So that's probably why the Hoover pump is a substitute. Anyway.
Okay.
Okay. Anything by anybody else? All right, we are adjourned with 4 minutes to spare. Goodbye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Hey,
Thanks.
everyone, I'm sorry about Judge kept me.
Okay,
I won.
Okay,
Cool.
that's accepted.
But he thought it was going to be a long hearing.